And we are back here from San Francisco. The Pro Chess League Finals. The first match of the semifinals is underway, but we are going to have a special guest to start off the second round matchup. With me here, if you don't recognize him, you've been living under a rock or you don't follow Chess That Matters. He is Grandmaster Hikaru Nakamura, multiple-time U.S. champion, and he's going to be helping us bring things into the round where St. Louis, the Archbishops, will face off against the Armenia Eagles. Give us your take, Hikaru. How do you see these two teams matching up, and what's your prediction of what we're about to see?
Yeah, I mean, I think on paper at least, St. Louis certainly is a favorite. You have three very strong grandmasters in Varijan Akobian, Darius Swerts, and Yaroslav Zherabuk, whereas Armenia only has Zven Andreasen and Samuel Tarasahakian in terms of their top two boards as being comparable. So on paper, I think St. Louis is certainly the favorite, but I think for me, it's going to be very close, especially because the top two Armenian players are very good at blitz and rapid as well. I've played against both of them quite a few times, both online and over the board. So I think if they perform the way that they're capable of performing, that could make a big difference. So I think it's going to be pretty close.
Yeah, well, you bring up Zven Andreasen. Obviously, we talked about how good and how well he performed at the recent Title Tuesday. Jokes aside, Robert, I'm not going to mention you lost to him too many more times. But, Hikaru, you mentioned how good they are at Rapid and Blitz. And as you look at this format, you know it's Rapid and Blitz. You're known as one of the world's strongest Rapid and Blitz players ever. Do you have a different style in those games? And how do you think that'll play into the way the players are preparing for each other?
Well, I mean, I think preparation is going to be a little bit overrated. Okay. I know, like for myself, even when I knew who I was going to be playing against, I didn't really do a whole lot because in Blitz and Rapid, I think players tend to open it up a bit more, and I think especially with these two teams, more so than the last match, I think the players are more used to playing in match situations. I felt like in the last match, for example, between China and the Ljubljana Turtles, for example, I thought that towards the third round and the fourth round that the Slovenian players didn't start taking risks as much as they should have. They tried to play too much within their natural styles. And while you can do that if the match is close, when you start falling behind, you really have to start taking risks. And I think when you look at the St. Louis players, several of them have played in the Olympiads, and of course several of the Armenian players, I don't know if they've actually played in the Olympiad, but they've played European Club Cup, quite a few team events. So I think in this match you're definitely going to see that both teams are very experienced, and if one team falls behind, they're going to start taking risks and understanding when to do that, whereas I felt in the first match that didn't really play a role.
All right. Well, we'll see how well these teams play on their toes and take the advice of Hikaru Nakamura. Also, of course, International Master Anna Rudolph sitting next to us. And I don't know that we have any further introductions to make because I'm being told and cued that the players are ready. They are sitting down. I think we can start things here for the second semifinal. So as these games get started and we have the boards ready to pop up, question for you, Hikaru, is who do you got? So you've kind of evaluated it. So make a prediction for us. Who do you got winning this match?
I mean, since I love Blitz and Rapid, I'm gonna have to go with the Armenian Eagles. Okay. Certainly, I just have to because I feel better Blitz and Rapid players, so that's much closer to my heart.
All right. Well, there you go, and close to the heart of all the fans of Armenia is, of course, their board 4. Who is playing first and foremost. We know how the format works, or if you don't, now you will. The board 4 for the first team plays board 1 for the second team as things get started. So that's why we have Artak Manukyan taken on board 1 for the St. Louis Archbishops. They are the defending champions. That experience touched on by Hikaru. We'll see how that matches up with the rapid and blitz specialty of the Armenia Eagles. Here we have a French, exchange French. Gonna be boring,
Danny,
not so boring. No, Hikaru, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, this looks kind of unusual. I mean, just looking at the start, somehow I feel like White's putting the bishop on d3. It doesn't feel quite so natural. Like if you go back to the start, I mean, it's exchange French, but somehow I feel like maybe the move order is slightly wrong because normally when Black plays c5, you always want to have some bishop b5 idea.
Okay.
Whereas like here, maybe if he wanted to do this, he could have played c3 first, so that if c5, then you have bishop b5 check. It just seems. I feel like somehow Black's getting a very good version of this in the game with the bishop on d3 and having gotten in c5, especially because normally White wants to exchange the pawns on c5 and get a favorable pawn structure. So I think just looking at the start, I'd be pretty happy if I was Varujan right now. I mean, the position looks great for him, and I like what he's got so far.
A happy Var makes a happy Anna, who plays a French, and of course she was probably upset at me that I didn't go immediately to her, but that's just my love-hate relationship with the French defense.
It's okay, Danny.
So
I don't take it personal.
What would you say? What do you see here? You agree with Hikaru? Black has a good version with your French bias aside?
Yeah, I love Black's position, and I was going to ask Hikaru in general, what do you think about players who choose the exchange variation as white, especially when it's a lower-rated player? Do you think it's a sign of trying to play for a draw?
I mean, I think trying to keep the position very balanced. I think certainly that's one thing that I noticed even when I was playing this year in the Pro Chess League, is that a lot of the weaker players, they try to keep it simple and they try to play something solid, and they end up just getting outplayed. And like there were quite a few games where that happened with me. I would just play something, and they try to be super solid, and sooner or later it just fell apart because there were too many pieces on the board. So. I mean, just looking at this position, everything to me looks. I mean, it's completely fine for white, but this is not how you want to play it. For example, I was thinking after bishop takes c5, if you go back. So if you go back like here, even here, I thought like takes and queen e2 actually made more sense to me. Like queen e2, bishop e6, and like bishop e3, for example, something like that. Try and play something a little bit simpler. I mean, just takes and some knight e2, knight b3 at some point just feels like. I mean,
better chances of maybe.
And it's simplified. It's easier to play, whereas it feels like in the game already, I actually like Var's position.
Yeah, and as far as the IQP goes, you have to like Black's activity here, whereas in the other position, like you were saying, White was trying to trade off and sort of take a positional approach against the pawn.
Exactly, yeah. Okay. I mean, I already prefer Var.
All right. Well, we'll keep our eye on it with Anna's rooting for the French, with Hikaru saying he already prefers Var. Not too surprising as board 1 takes on board 4 for the Bishops and the Eagles. But we have another board 1 versus board 4 matchup underway. Obviously, here we have Forrest Chen, the young star from St. Louis, taking on Zavin Andreassian. The Blitz and Rapid specialist Hikaru was given some props to. So what do you think when you see this one here?
So far, this is looks like it's the same-ish King's Indian. I think we're gonna have to wait a few more moves to see what setup White goes for, and Black as well. Having played this quite a bit with White, especially, I think the question is whether Black's going to play for a6 right away, play knight bd7, or just play some sort of h5 after knight g2. In fact, knight g2 is played, so probably takes, probably a6, a4. I assume a6 will be played pretty quickly. Either a6 or now you can even play knight bd7 or h5. I mean, it's just a matter of which setup you want. So
what's the structure? What about the pawn structure? Can we provide some education for the fans that says that Black is playing h5 to prevent g4, and you're not really worried about weakening your own king here?
Well, White's never going g4.
Ever?
Not really.
In any line?
No.
Okay.
And what is the purpose of h5?
Well, I mean, the purpose of h5 is to stop knight g3. White wants to go knight g3, bishop e2, and just castle. In most cases,
so now if the knight comes there, you're kicking the knight out.
Yeah, exactly. So h5 is more about preventing knight g3 than g4.
Okay.
But I mean,
that's the Yugoslav attack player in me, always obsessed with checkmate. But there you go.
Yeah, but you play e4. It's a bit different.
Right. Different line. Okay. All right. So h5 is played, and we'll see how.
I mean, I'm guessing it's going to go queen d2, a6, a4, knight bd7, and we're back in a pretty standard position. That's my guess.
Okay.
So a4, knight bd7, or rook e8, one of the two, and then let's say knight bd7 here, for example, and then probably knight c1 or maybe knight f4. I think they're both playable from what I seem to recall.
And the idea here for White's going to be just castling short, obviously, you've prevented b5 But Black is also in a solid Benoni kind of structure.
Yeah, I mean, White's never castling long. All these ideas of castling long and going g4
are e4 openings.
Too extravagant.
It's my e4. It's the e4 in me. You're right.
It's a quick way to lose.
And I appreciate you calling me out because that's how I lose most of the time. It's very quickly. All right. So what do we have here in the third game between one of the players who has been a star in the Pro Chess League this year? We got Karen Grigorian. We saw this opening, or something similar to it, in the first round of play here. Hikaru, your first thoughts. It's a little bit awkward when you see the minor piece placed in the center here. White is going to try for e4, but at this point Black has put the stops to that. Are we just going to see knight c3 and White try to prepare for e4? Okay, and Black prevents that.
Yeah, I'm not too familiar with this. This looks like some kind of a Fianchetto Grunfeld. I don't really know what either side is doing at the moment, because I don't tend to play these systems with either side. But my guess is here, if I were white, I mean, either we're going to play for knight c3 or something like queen c2, rook d1, and knight e1 followed by f3 and e4.
Right.
So like queen c2, for example, knight d7.
Okay.
Like let's just say knight d7, rook d1.
Okay.
Let's just say rook e8, for example, and then something like knight e1. And white would be doing very well, because you're just going to play if black plays f5, then you can play f3 and e4. If you move the knight, you play e4 and grab space in the center. It's kind of similar to some of the games from the first match as well, but this is very good for white. So I think that's one idea. Another would just be to play knight c3, and if you play knight c3, something like knight takes c3, b takes c3, but then even c5, and black looks to be doing quite well. So I would expect queen c2. That would be my guess as far as what white should play.
And he probably should have, but he didn't, and so we'll see how black Dariusz Schwierz is. You've played Schwierz before.
I've played him online a couple of times, never over the board, so not super familiar. But he's a very strong Polish player. He's played in quite a few Olympiads now, and he's studying at Webster. So I mean, like I said, on paper, I think that St. Louis is the favorite. I mean, I really think in order for Armenia to win, it's going to come down to Andreasen and Tersahakian. If they play very well when they play against like VAR, for example, or even when they play against Darius, that's going to be the difference. If they can live up to their reputations for online blitz, then I think they'll pull through. But if they don't put up big scores, I think it's going to be very hard.
Schwierz takes your advice, immediately plays c5, and you said you like black there, so we'll keep an eye on it.
I already I like St. Louis on both boards already.
Okay. The next and last game we haven't taken a look at yet. We have Samuel Tersahakian, not quite a French, but almost a pawn structure.
I love the
You're
pawn
excited
structure,
about,
yeah,
Anna.
of course.
All right, but what do we see going on here between Yaroslav Zerabuk, who's been one of the top performers in the league overall, not just for the St. Louis Archbishops, and we're going to have an interesting sort of ready approach. B3 here. This is almost like a Karo Nakamura playing bullet. Not quite.
No, I don't. I play B3 on move 1.
I know,
and usually not with C4.
I was just kidding, but yes. So why is that then? What's different about this structure? Black plays for C5 in these lines, right?
Yeah, I mean, so almost certainly black's going to play C5 here, and then white really is a choice. Is white going to play like bishop B2? Is white going to like bishop B2 and E3? Is white going to take on D5? There are a couple options. I've had this position quite a few times with both white and black. So my guess is probably we could very easily reach another Benoni structure, like something like bishop b2, for example, d4, e3, knight c6, ed4, cd4, rook e1. Something like this, I think, could very easily occur.
Right.
With the idea of playing for knight e5.
Yep. Okay. And how does black approach this position? Are you already just committing to slowing down potential play on the queen side, or are you relocating now, bishop d6 or bishop c5? Obviously, the d4 pawn's hanging, so you have to be careful.
I mean, I think when in this line, black usually plays something unusual. I think normally here you play like knight e8, actually, with the idea of playing f6 and e5. Because, for example, if you were to play like a5 instead of knight e8, like a5 after knight e5, white's already better, because if you trade on e5, white takes, and then white also has the b5 square for the rook now, since you move the pawn to a5. And if you don't take, I mean, it's just white's play is too dynamic here. Even knight a3, knight b5 is coming. So you're supposed to play knight e8, and then it usually goes something like knight e8, like rook e1, knight e8, knight a3, f6, knight c2, e5, and I think something like knight h4. And I suspect this is still theory somewhere, but something like this is what normally would happen. However, whether Yaro goes for this or not, I don't know. Somehow I feel like Yaro usually tries to play more open positions, so I'm a little bit surprised to see him playing this, because this doesn't really, from what I know about his style, this doesn't really feel like the way he normally played. However, okay, so bishop b2 was played, and d4 was not played. Knight c6 was played, so takes knight c3, probably bishop f6 here, and it's going to be a very slow positional game. Probably something like bishop f6, rook c1, b6 is my guess. Okay.
We'll come back and check on it, but we got to move over here to fireworks that just happened on Artak Manukian's board. Unfortunately, the wrong kind of fireworks, like the kind you're holding in your hand and then they go off. Because
love it. French defense proving once again that it's one of the best openings in the world.
Of all time, right? And at this point, the tactics that really got wild here, Hikaru predicted it, everybody, when he said that Vorokobian had a really great version of this exchange French, especially with an isolated queen pawn and a lot of open lines. You expect good things to happen for your pieces, and in this situation, probably Manukyan blunders at some point, because I don't think we see tactics like that on h3.
Some bishop h3, yeah, exactly.
Unless there was a blunder. And the point, everybody, is that g takes is not possible due to queen g3 check. The f2 pawn is pinned. That's a problem, right?
It's game over,
That's game over. So with that, Manukyan did not play take back on h3. He played the knight to d4, but now he's just going to be down a pawn, if not more, here momentarily. So that's a bad tactic there.
Yeah,
from such a harmless opening, black just jumps to life and takes over, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the point, is normally in all these sort of exchange French or Tarrasch even, is that pretty similar as well. Like, you always want to try and interpose the bishop on b6 with the bishop on e3, whether it's b6, c5, you always want to do something like that, because if black just gets normal development, it's very pleasant and easy to play. So,
right.
Yeah, I mean, Vars, I mean, should win this, I would think, pretty routinely. So, it's already St. Louis is off to a very good start.
Yeah. Anna, any parting shots on the French? I'm going to give you your chance.
I'm going to make notes and count how many victories are there for the French today. That's 1-0 for me too.
Okay, as you should be. Yeah. No, but this is a matchup that is tough on paper and is getting tougher by the move for Manukyan. So let's go to the matchup that the Eagles hope is the same thing the other way. We left it with some analysis, rejoining the live position.
So he did play knight c1, but what did he do? He did something unusual.
Yeah, we'll back up to right here. After c takes d5 and then h5, we left the board. Bishop f4, that seems weird, right?
That's a weird move. I don't understand what that does exactly.
Yep. And you were just highlighting that's a square that the knight belongs on a lot of the time.
Yeah, you can put a knight there. But I mean, just in general, like, you lose a tempo, because d6 is not really, I mean, it's not really a weakness, so it just seems like a very strange. It feels like a waste of a tempo.
Yeah, and he proves it's not a weakness by just playing rook e8. He's sort of laughing at the idea that there is no knight b5. There's nothing happening here for white.
Right. Yeah. Bishop f4 just is not. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
So perhaps Forrest Chen was a little bit thrown off, the youngster, everybody, when Zavin Andreassian played h5 so quickly. Now he's played bishop f4. Tries to go for a maneuver, but Zavin really highlighting that this pawn is just not capturable, right? And
yeah, because takes you have like queen b6, I think, and I don't. It's just terrible. White's,
all kinds
White's
of.
In a lot of trouble,
What's the immediate follow-up after the bishop moves?
Well, which queen b2, for example.
Okay, just straight up getting the pawn back.
Now that I'm thinking about it, maybe there's knight b5, so I'm not so sure. So go back to knight bd7, bishop d6.
Okay.
Because there's knight b5 here, followed by bishop c7.
Right.
So
on a6, that would be.
Yeah, and that's game over. So maybe there's some trick with, instead of a6, you can throw in knight takes e4.
Right.
Yeah, maybe knight b5, knight takes e4.
That makes sense. Intermezzo,
Fe4,
nice tactics.
Rook takes e4. Yeah, probably. Yeah, because king f2, you just king f2 c4, and you're just getting mated. Because like king f3, queen e3, king g3, h4, it's just yeah, you're getting mated. So that's why.
Wow. Okay, so that's interesting and instructive tactics there, especially, again, just highlighting the king in the center, even if you think it's safe. That knight takes e4 tactic, super dangerous. So with that, Forrest Chen learned a lesson that bishop f4 was a waste, because d6 is not actually under attack. And now we're in a position that, as Hikaru noted, immediately seems a little weird for white. But the other thing that's a little weird right now for everybody is we don't have Grandmaster Robert Hess here, for those of you who've been watching for the last 4 hours, but he has already caught up. No, not actually. No, we have Women's FIDE Master Alexander Botez with another Super GM on site, Jon Hammer, and he is here, not managing the gnomes, but watching as a fan, and we're going to go to Alexander right now.
I'm here with Grandmaster Jon Hammer from the Norway Gnomes. Jon, although your team didn't make it to the finals, you still came all the way to SF. Thanks for that. What was your motivation?
Well, San Francisco is basically my second home because my family lived in Berkeley for a year when I was young. So I love coming back here, seeing this event in person. I think it's a historic occasion. It's the first esport kind of thing for chess, and I think it's just going to be bigger and bigger, and I want to be able to say that I was here for the very first one.
Do you have any team you're rooting for?
Yeah, I think the Pandas are going to be my favorites for this weekend. I love cheering for the team I actually think is the strongest. Very many times I am the first seed at tournaments, so I really appreciate what it takes to be the favorite and then go home and win it. So I'm cheering for the Pandas, and it's also a good story. Qualifying through the qualifier this fall, and then making it all the way to the final. That's impressive already.
Speaking of favorites, you were able to recruit Magnus on your team. How were you able to do that?
I asked him very politely, do you want to play, without too much expectations. And that, I have to say, to Magnus's credit, he has been one of the most steady participants of the Norway Gnomes team. Every time he is available, meaning not at tournament, he's been there for the team, and he's been carrying the team. Unfortunately, it was not enough this year, but we'll be back stronger than ever next year.
That sounds great. How badly do you wish you were on that stage right now?
Actually, I'm quite enjoying being at chess tournaments without the stress of competition. So it would have been very nice to have the Gnomes here. But as it is, I'm enjoying it anyhow.
Great. What do you think of the opening position so far? We can get his expert analysis.
Well, I think the opening in such a rapid format isn't going to play that big of a role, but maybe time consumption is. So you want to play something you're familiar with so that you don't spend very much time. And I see that Akobian has been playing his French defense, a defense he plays all the time, and he even managed to pick up a pawn on h3. So I'm liking his chances.
Wonderful. Thank you. Back to you guys.
And as Hammer said, Akobian did manage to, like a thief in the night, steal the pawn on h3, and otherwise the position looks pretty normal. And then you notice that White's down a pawn there on the king side. But let's move back to a game that we talked about early. Hikaru highlighted he liked Black's chances here, but some things have changed a little bit here. One of the main things I immediately noticed is a prophecy by Hikaru that Armenia seems to be a slight favorite in terms of rapid and blitz. And one thing to highlight about Dariusz Schwierz is he has not actually played a lot of the matches this year. He's sort of new to the format. Grandmaster Fedoseev and Fabiano Caruana, they played more for the bishops than Schwierz did. And so I wonder if some of the nerves there, along with the fact that I know he landed at 2 a.m. last night, just little is going to play a role. But do you still like Black's position here, mainly because of the pin on f3?
Yeah, I mean, Black's doing great here.
Yeah.
If you move the knight, you're going to win the rook on d1. I mean, I guess you can play queen takes b7. I assume that was the idea, but after queen b7, let's see. So queen b7, maybe knight a5, for example, is one option. Maybe you can play rook a c8 as well. I think there are a couple possibilities. Knight a5, I think, just simply equalizes. So like knight a5, queen a6, bishop takes f3, bishop f3, queen f3, queen takes a5, queen takes e4, and I mean, Black's slightly better. It should be a draw, but there are no problems whatsoever. If rook a c8, maybe White can play.
We're gonna find out, right?
Yeah, if rook a c8, White can play rook c1 probably. And again, it's going to be something pretty similar, maybe, or maybe this is just better for White. Because now bishop f3, you don't have to exchange. You can take on c6 right away versus taking on f3 first.
Right. And here you hold on to the e-pawn.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, I assume that's probably what's going to happen, and I assume knight a5 will be played. That's my best guess.
Okay.
There's got to be a move here, I would think.
Not yet. Black is still thinking. Schwierz is getting under time pressure, and I guess that's what I was highlighting about in the being a little new to the format, maybe being a little tired, but we'll see. Maybe not. Maybe he's just being patient and letting himself get into it. Speaking of being patient here, Yaroslav Zerabuk is going to be on a patient approach to kind of undermine and attack the hanging pawns.
Yeah, so probably he's going to play knight d3 here with the idea of trying to hit the pawn on c5 or knight f4 hitting the pawn on d5. And I mean, I actually prefer Black here. I like the hanging pawns in this position, but it's fairly tricky to play. So something like knight d3, rook f d8 maybe, and then knight f4, and something like a4. And Black should be fine here, but it's just a position still. Neither side has anything special.
Okay. So the d5 pawn isn't capturable here. I'm thinking.
I mean, you definitely can try.
Right.
I mean, if you play knight takes d5, bishop takes d5, bishop takes d5. If knight before, you take the rook on a8,
yeah,
and you're
very,
very happy.
Yep.
So probably not that. Probably, but I was thinking like here maybe something like a3 possibly, but probably just bishop c3 here, and it's kind of bad. So maybe
black needs to be
a little bit more careful.
Can you just explain briefly after knight b4, bishop takes a8? Why do you consider that giving up the queen for 2 rooks is better for white in that position, for those who might be wondering?
Right, so knight b4, bishop takes a8, rook d1, rook c takes d1.
Okay.
Knight takes a2. The reason that I think this should be better for white is white has 2 bishops, first of all, but then 2 rooks for the queen, and all of white's pieces are a bit more active. So like here white can play rook d7, followed by bishop to d5. And it's more that, like, in this position, the queen doesn't really have many targets. The queen has pretty much no targets. White's rook is active. The bishops are on great diagonals. So the 2 rooks here are much stronger than the black queen.
Yeah, something Super GM sees instantly. But no, it's good. It's good to go into that because I think a lot of people are very used to being afraid of parting with the queen. But here, because of the open lines and because the queen, as you said, she lacks targets, right? Normally the queen needs weaknesses on both sides of the board so she can attack the king and weak pawns over here, right? Those are the kind of positions where the queen will do well. Not this type of position.
I mean, in general, also, when you have 2 rooks for the queen and there are multiple minor pieces on the board, the rooks become much stronger.
Right.
In just traditional queen against 2 rooks, there are many cases where the queen is as strong as the rook's not stronger. When it's you have minor pieces on the board, the rooks become a lot better generally.
Okay.
Well, this is very instructive.
I know. I'm making notes. I'm making notes right now as well.
Me too.
And I say that because there were 2 games that I played. I know some people out there are they follow a lot of the top games, and there was a game I had against Fabiano
from
in St. Louis. But much more recently, I had this game against Valentina Gunina in Gibraltar as well, and it was very similar. I had 2 rooks and 3 pawns against a queen and 2 pawns, and even though I had the 2 rooks and a pawn, the queen was much better than the rooks. So in general, when you have rooks with minor pieces, the rooks become a lot stronger than they're just it's just 2 rooks against the queen.
Free pro tips from Grandmaster Hikaru Nakamura. So get out your notebooks if you didn't have it already. But we got to go back to this game between Grigorian and Schwierz because knight a5 was played and then queen takes e7. So white is deciding that he can afford to sacrifice a piece, or there's a tactic here that we didn't quite see yet. Hikaru?
I mean, he's got queen c7, I guess, is the idea. So bishop f3, bishop f3, queen takes f3, queen c7 is my guess.
We have our first result.
Yeah, we do. We'll click back to that right now because Akobian took care of business very quickly. When you blunder a pawn on h3 like that, shot in the dark, we will remind everybody what the critical moment indeed was right back here where Akobian spied a weakness, not just the pawn, but the pin on the diagonal he took on h3, and this would have been lights out. Followed by all kinds of ways to win. I don't know. Choose your flavor. Whatever you want. Probably take the knight with check.
Queen f3, queen takes d3.
Okay. Easiest,
everything else isn't so simple.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So we'll go with Hikaru's line. But because of that, Akobian was able to get away with this pawn and go on to win the game easily. So the bishops are on the board with the first victory. Let's jump right back to this interesting one after queen c7. The knight would be trapped, and I guess queen h5 would even.
I think you just play d5.
Right. Okay.
And
so
now you're actually like just completely lost.
Right.
So, okay. So queen e7.
So he played knight c4.
Right.
Interesting that black is really being patient with the pin here. I mean, obviously because it's not going anywhere, but that'll really be a key point to see if white is just coming up with one trick after another to avoid the inevitable, and we'll see how long he can do that.
But this looks a little bit suspect. Like I think maybe white can play queen c5 here.
Okay. Ooh. Yeah, because if you take e3, I protect the knight.
Right. Well, you take e3, you can also trade queens, too.
Right, okay, yeah.
But also maybe even rook c1 as well. This looks a little bit suspect. Like I'm kind of wondering if Darius missed this queen takes e7, queen c7 idea. I mean, I know when we were analyzing, I missed it, too. So I wouldn't be shocked if he didn't see it. So, yeah, so he does go rook c1. I mean, queen c5 and rook c1 were the 2 possible moves.
And suddenly we see Grigorian getting away with something here. Yeah, he took one pawn, took another pawn as based on the trick of this knight being on the rim, and looks like white may surprise and get an edge here. Yeah.
Yeah, this looks very, very unpleasant for black. So I'm.
Speaking of very unpleasant, not for black but for white, we should probably catch the ending of this one because something has gone and Forrest run. That's what white needs to do here. Not sure how far he can run though.
It's too late to run.
Yeah.
Well, just rook takes f. No, rook f3. You have bishop f3. So it's a clever try, but I mean there are several ways to win here. I mean,
yeah.
f4. No, f4 just knight f1. But probably just rook e4 is the simplest. Rook e4, queen h6.
Okay.
But queen h6, rook e1, you have some queen g6 tricks.
Maybe queen d4 in a mizzo, or no? Okay.
I mean, I'm sure there are multiple ways to win here. But what is white threatening after bishop e4? Just rook takes e3, right? So
technically, although f4 at the end of it might just win material back.
True. Yeah. I mean, this has to be winning. You can actually just go rook takes e1. That's got to be the simplest way.
So rook e1.
Yeah, because if queen e1, you just take the bishop. If queen takes h6, you just take the other rook on e1.
And b2's hanging.
And that's pretty clean. Yeah, that's got to be the cleanest way just to finish it off.
Well, Andreassian is taking his time to think about it. You can do that when your opponent has less than 20 seconds. So we have a big win for the French so far. We have the board one for Armenia looking to strike right back. So as Robert predicted in the beginning of the first round, especially as far as momentum goes, we were talking about these 2-3 matchups being the really critical ones that set the tone. Before we go away, we can see young Forrest Chen there. Just kind of maybe he looks like he's just sort of waiting for the inevitable, right? Waiting for Guffman right there, just waiting for the axe to drop.
At this point, I think this is the only thing that he can do.
Right,
Fortunately for him.
Nothing worse than sitting in a lost position and waiting for your opponent to make the winning move. I know you don't have that experience as much as I do, but I can tell you it's one of the worst feelings.
It is a horrible
feeling.
I have a lot of experience.
What happened here? Did he move or not?
No. Oh, he did.
Or did he move or not?
Rook takes e4 was played.
It was played.
Instead of that, and so he took. Yeah.
It's not so straightforward then. This is not simple. I mean, you can play queen takes b2 and play some endgame where you're probably better, but it's not. This isn't so easy.
Yeah, you're always worried about a draw via perpetual now.
Yeah, like king f1 here, and like if you exchange the rooks on e1, for example, you're probably technically you're going to be winning this somehow, but considering that h5 is so weak, there's always some knight h5, knight f6 type of ideas combined with mate. It should still be winning, but it's not trivial. It doesn't feel quite right somehow.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree with you. I feel like you solved it when we came to the final conclusion that black should have taken here.
Yeah, because I mean, rook e1 was just winning on the spot. So this is.
So we'll see if he. I mean, now he's gone into the thing. Is that usually suggestive that maybe he missed something like with Schwierz, right? He plays rook e4. Now he's thought for more than 90 seconds and not so
definitely
sure.
he missed something.
Yeah.
I think probably figured he had rook e1 or probably rook e1, queen g6, and he could just run with the king. But it's not so simple. And well, I suspect this still should be winning right off. I don't see like a killer blow that just finishes the game immediately.
Right.
So maybe it's not going to be so simple or as easy as I kind of was expecting it to be.
We'll keep our eye on this one, especially in the corner of the time pressure. It'll be exciting. Look at that. Young kid knows how to pre-move capture. I learned that from you. Always pre-move capture. Didn't you say that once?
Probably. I mean, it's pretty obvious to do that.
Well, okay, I know, but I'm older than you, so it's hard to teach me new tricks. All right, rook takes e1, king takes e1, and then all right. So we'll keep our eye on this one. Hikaru has predicted that maybe something got a little bit away there, though black should still be winning. This one has just become so weird where that queen went in there and gobbled every pawn and looks like they're going to get away with it, although e4 will be captured now.
Probably rook a8 here, I would assume, is going to be played.
Okay.
I mean, rook e4 is probably okay, but it feels like maybe knight e5 looks really, really kind of dangerous.
Yeah,
like knight e5, and if rook e3, rook takes off 7, and you're getting mated, I think.
Yeah, okay. So danger. Will Robinson. So if he doesn't go for that, though, but if he goes for the
I mean, I would guess rook a8 or maybe bishop h6 here is possible, too.
Okay. Interesting.
Bishop h6 and then rook a8 next move just to put pressure on e3 first. That would be my best guess. I mean, rook a8, queen c5, rook a2, maybe you can suffer instead of bishop h6.
Yeah.
But, I mean, this doesn't look good. So I certainly would... I would prefer to be white.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll see what Spears comes up with here. He only has a minute on the clock to do it, whatever it's going to be. Let's jump back to the game that seems closest to finish because we're down to the exciting part.
Yeah, see, this has gone completely wrong.
Completely wrong.
Queen c8 maybe? I mean, I still think he's going to find a way to win this, but this
it's getting super scary. He finally stops the checks, and we push him, baby. But is it going to be enough?
Looks pretty good. You can't exchange the queens. Something like queen b5, maybe queen d4 because now you can't go to f1 because there's bishop d3 check. So you have to go to e1, and now
you could take d5 or
queen d5 is probably. I mean, I certainly would play it because when you've been playing a game where you should have just won and finished off cleanly, and then you start missing things like if you just play queen d5, technically you're just going to be winning. So. I think it's better to do that than trying to be cute after you've already missed one chance to
not been cute as you should have been, right?
Yeah.
Let's see
in fact, I think he's probably going to do it. Is my guess.
What was that, Anna?
If he is going to take Hikaru's advice because he has been repeating moves and now he goes king h6.
Well, he probably works too. I mean, it's not like there's a huge rush. But.
And he's sort of putting Chen in a position of coming up with an awkward move, I guess, under time pressure. But I expect he'll take Hikaru's advice as he has.
Now it should just be routine b3. This is over.
Chen going for one final stab, everybody, at perpetual. We'll see a piece block on f7.
Wait, but now you can take. Couldn't you take and play like knight c3?
Yeah, why didn't he go for that? He could have done it and sacked.
Yeah, that's odd.
Not the best technique for Mondrian today.
I mean, he's trying to flag him. That much is clear.
Which is never good advice. You would never advise that, right? You got to play good moves and then let them flag themselves.
I mean, I think the problem here is that the moves are not difficult for White. Like White has a couple of moves. If the moves are not obvious, I think it's very logical to try and flag your opponent. But in a position like this, where like you make a wrong move, like Queen takes c4 and Knight c3, and now I don't. Okay, if he had played Queen c4, b2, Knight c3, it was not clearly winning because also White can always play g4 at some point.
He'll probably sacrifice on c. No, should he sacrifice on c3?
Well, I mean, that's going to be a draw though. That's my point. When you take
because c4 hangs.
If you play Queen c3 and Queen, White plays Queen c4 and then g4 at some point, and Queen and Bishop against Queen is a draw.
Right.
So I mean, this
is the point, everybody.
Yeah, this kind of.
Andreasen has not given his best effort here. I mean, we're predicting he's likely still going to win this game.
I mean, with correct play, he should not win this game now. This should be a draw. Because,
really? Wow.
Well, how do you protect b2? If you play Queen d2, I take c4.
Okay. So he's already put himself in a position where White's going to happily part with the knight.
I mean, basically, I don't see how you progress without giving up your 2 pawns for the knight.
Wow, amazing. So buckle up, everybody. If we see a huge, this could be, this is board one versus board four.
He doesn't. I mean, he's not going to win this here if
all things are played
just
well.
King h2 and just
amazing.
like King g1. Also, don't forget, I mean, here the problem is you can't exchange queens either because, again, g4 is always coming. And
immediately.
Like just Queen d4 here. And, I mean, with correct play, this is a draw for sure. So this is going to be a huge swing. Yeah.
Can he hold it?
I think so. I mean,
it's just you move your queen. It's not you try to check or you protect the pawn. I mean, this should be a draw now. This
amazing.
If you were black in this game, how would you try to trick your opponent? You know that it's a draw, but you want to beat him.
So before we do that, just because it looks like it should be simple enough, I don't want to miss the other one where now Schwierz is only down to 4 seconds, and but in this one.
Whoa, this got wild.
Yeah, maybe he is. We're keeping an eye on that, and there you go. Chen has secured the draw with a nice effort, forcing the queen trade. So we are having a board 1 give up a draw to a board 4. Amazing.
Yeah, that was really very strange. Very
bad
strange.
technique.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was very weird.
This is an amazing result for Forrest Chen. He's the youngest participant of the finals here, and he was basically coming back from the dead.
Right, and we just said that Forrest would not have anywhere else to run, but he proved us wrong.
So he did.
Just like Tom Hanks, time and time again. They think they're done with
time. Did he flag?
Oh my gosh, he flagged! Oh my gosh. He just forgot he flagged, and the crowd went nuts, as you can hear them. And right at that happened, we had another game end by resignation. So, wait, so many results coming and hitting the scoreboard so quickly. Where does that leave us? It leaves us where Armenia, despite... Oh, wait, it's not over yet. Oh, it's just a draw. Okay.
Just a pun, yeah.
This is the This is the spite. I don't really want to give my opponent a draw. Okay.
Yeah, that's a huge upset. I mean, especially considering the situation. I think that could definitely swing the match.
Yeah,
sure.
I mean,
that's a huge upset.
Lucky or not lucky, I mean, by design if you're Armenia, right, they did win the battles on board 2 and 3. That's huge from the perspective that if those are the earliest swing games, right? You expect board 1 on each team to do their thing.
Of course.
They didn't. Forrest Chen has a huge draw, but because Armenia won the board 2 and 3 battles, they still take a 2.5, 1.5 lead. So your prediction looks to be in good shape, but Andreassian didn't have his best chess this first round.
Yeah, I mean, I think probably the advantage so far has to lean towards St. Louis, even though they're down by half point, just because of the board 1, board 4.
Right.
Obviously, you're going to have to play against board 3 and board 2 and board 1 later on. So, I think, I mean, even though St. Louis is down, I think in a sense it's the best 2.5, 1.5 result they could have gotten.
Right.
So for being down, I think they're still in very good. They're in very good shape.
Okay. Well, this has been, honestly, I don't think I've ever learned as much in commentary. That's not taking anything away from you, Bobby. Bobby has no. But, no, seriously, that was a lot of rapid-fire, high-level analysis. Hikaru, we really appreciate you joining us. You're going to stick around, maybe join Alexandra later, but you're going to be here on site till the end of the day today.
Yeah, I will be here.
Okay,
yeah.
And probably entertaining some of the fans on site with some more. I've been watching, so I'm sitting here, and I'm watching games, and I see Hikaru pop up right here playing. And
trying to play on a touchpad, but it's
not the
very
best.
tough. Yeah,
you're still
tough.
maintaining 3,000 somehow.
Somehow, yeah.
On a touchpad.
But somehow.
Yeah.
Not bad, but all right.
So impressive.
Well, thank you for joining us. This was an amazing commentary session. Let's bring up the scoreboard there and remind everybody what we just saw. We have the first round in the books. Those are the pairings for the second round, but you can see the score beneath each team logos with a 1-point lead for the Eagles heading the next round. Ann and I will have it from here. Hikaru, thank you so much.
Sure, no
Thank
problem.
And we'll see you tomorrow at the championship.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right.
Great.
We're muted, or no? Cool. Hey, everybody, I'm not muted. Thanks for noticing that in the live show. Hikaru is walking out, and he's awesome, everybody. All right. I can get excited about the next round here, but in a moment we will be joined by the manager of the Armenia Eagles. He is with Women's FIDE Master Alexandra Botez. As soon as the team says, we're going to throw it to Alexandra, and round 2 will be beginning shortly, everybody. Yep.
This has been such a masterclass, Danny.
It was a masterclass. He put us through the ringer there. He was moving lines so fast I couldn't actually keep up with the board that we have. And
I know,
part
he's
of it
much faster
is
than
this
us.
incredibly fast esports mouse, and I'm like,
So cool.
I know Rocket League and Overwatch appreciates this, but it was like I kept overshooting the piece and square I was shooting for. So anyway, but a huge victory in the books right now for Armenia with getting the 2-3 battle, but another victory within the match, right? Obviously with Forrest Chen getting a draw.
That was impressive. That was so impressive. We already said that we thought that game was completely over. It was no point to look at it, no point to analyze.
I was making pop culture jokes, you know.
Exactly.
I mean, I thought Forrest couldn't run any farther, but he did it.
Well, you did not read the chat. I was following the chat at that time, and there were some great comments by you guys. Shout out to everyone. I think we've just hit 11,000 viewers. Shout out to everyone watching on Twitch, on Chess.com TV, and to our live audience. A huge shout out for joining the first ever esports chess event.
We need to get a microphone on the crowd. It's a bigger crowd than you think. You know, in soccer stadiums, they put a mic right next to the stands, you know, so we're not cheating here.
We are missing the microphone. I knew that something was wrong with the setup.
That's right. But no, we will be buckled in here. Obviously, this is the matchup that is going to decide who will join the Pandas in the finals. The Pandas took care of business earlier today. For a lot of you just joining us, since we are now at just about 12,000 live viewers, this is the second matchup of the day. For the Pro Chess League semifinals, this is a matchup to decide who will be joining the Pandas in the championship tomorrow. And before we get the next round started, we have an interview now with the Armenia Eagles manager, Artak Manukyan, with Women's FIDE Master Alexandra Botez.
I'm here with the overperforming Board 4 and team manager of the Armenian Eagles, Artak Manukyan. Congratulations on your win. Were you feeling nervous going into the round?
We were not feeling nervous, but it's too early to congratulate, because if we will made it 3-1, maybe we will be more confident. So there are a lot of rounds to go, and in particular I lost, so let's see how it will go.
Looking into the next round, do you have any particular strategy?
Our strategy is that anybody of us, we shoot. So I do not know who, but I think that some of my guys, we shoot.
Was there any critical game during this match?
The critical game will be on round 4, when all the equal, let's say, skills and equal, let's say, expertise will meet each other. So till that, I think that nothing will be clear.
Thank you. Go back to Anna, Nakamura, and Danny.
Thanks.
Hikaru's not here anymore, but he's with us in spirit, as always.
Always with us in spirit.
Chess.com members should know that. All Chess.com Reds. Hikaru is with you in spirit anytime you're playing on our site. It's just one fun advantage. All right, are you ready? I'm ready.
I'm so ready.
I've gotten some caffeine in me. The first round of the semifinals is in the books. I now have International Master Anna Rudolph alongside me, and
International Master Danny Rensch.
We're in for another big one, because we get closer and closer to that board 1 versus board 1, board 4 versus board 4. I get the feeling we're in for a thriller here between the Eagles and the Bishops.
I feel like that too, and as Hikaru said, depending on how board 1 and board 2 of the Eagles will perform, that can decide the match. So he said that Andreasen and Tersakhayan are key players. We saw Andreasen not converting a winning position against the lowest rated opponent.
Almost easily winning, yeah. Shocker.
So that's not a good sign for the Eagles.
No, and if you're just joining us, you missed a thriller there with Andreasen just completely in control, as he should have been. It would have put the Eagles in a 3-1 position heading into round 2. As you can see the scoreboard, or you can't see it yet, but you will see 2.5, 1.5 as the actual score. So we'll see if Hikaru's prediction that the Eagles would win pays off, but he did say that St. Louis really had a mini victory despite losing the first round because of Chen sort of getting a piece of Andreasen there. The players are getting ready. They are getting set. They are lining up, and we will be starting round 2 in just a moment. We have there on camera. We have Dariusz Schwierz, who is board 2 for this round of play for the St. Louis Archbishops. As we said, he's not the most experienced for the Bishops this year. He didn't play as often as many of the others in the regular season, and that's because they've been relying on the services of guys like Fabiano Caruana, Vladimir Fedoseev. But here in San Francisco, Schwierz is looking to earn his seat, and if he gets a big win, despite losing his first round game, he'll be doing that. So good luck to him.
And the hero of the first round, Forrest Chen. I'm a fan. I'm a fan of him.
How can you not be?
I know.
He's the youngest player here, you said.
Only 16 years old.
Yep. And
he's chewing something. It's either chocolate or chewing gum. What's your bet on that?
It's gum. It's chocolate. Maybe it's chocolate gum. Who knows?
Chocolate gum. I love that.
But either way, the game between Samvel Tersakhayan and Forrest Chen is underway. We just talked about how Forrest was able to get a draw off the top board, so it should just get easier from here on out, right? Now,
exactly.
Now Forrest has only a nearly 2,600 Grandmaster next, so shouldn't be too hard for him to get a draw or a win in this one.
I also like his opening choice. It's almost the French.
Almost the French.
It's the brother of the French
defense. That should be
defense.
the title of your autobiography. Almost French. Right there.
Exactly. The Caracan is so similar to the French in terms of the strategy in the middle game, so I love it. Forrest Chen is now my new favorite player officially.
Well, he's been a huge player for those of you watching the Pro Chess League finals for the first time, whether it's today or ever. This is the biggest championship of the year so far in the chess world, and the biggest team championship we think that exists. And Forrest has been huge for St. Louis all year, coming up with big wins in the playoffs, upset victories as an underrated player on board 4, and he's a rising star for St. Louis for sure. Samvel Tersakhayan, one of the best grandmasters in Armenia, and a rapid and blitz specialist, as Hikaru was just pointing out. So here we have him playing an exchange Caro, but not a Panopodvinic, and as can often happen, a system that I actually play as white, which would be c4. But rather than a Panopodvinic, going for knight f3, and that means that after knight f6, usually you see usually bishop d3 here, although, no, you could still see a c4 potentially. Oh, 95, okay. An awkward...
That's new to me. Do you know anything about this 95 move?
No, we're you know what? Why don't
Let's
we
call
have a...
Hikaru.
We need to get a 2800 next to us
Excuse
again.
me, Hikaru, are you?
No, but the idea, though, overall is that the knight on e5 has some immediate intentions, potentially, of this bishop coming to b5, and obviously bringing the knight to c6 will no longer be possible. And if white is forced to... if black is forced to block on d7 with a bishop, white might just win the bishop pair. So an awkward move order, but with some principled ideas in mind. We'll see how black deals with the threat of bishop b5 here. I don't expect that we will see... I don't think we'll see any kind of panic moves, probably even just knight to c6. In that case, he can meet bishop b5 a little more safely. I don't think we'd see a6, but maybe it stops the bishop from coming to b5. And okay, knight c6 makes the most sense. Just develop a piece. Try to keep developing a piece with every move and punish white for having wasted this time here. White wins the bishop here, Anna, but has made several moves out of the opening with one piece. That's against principles.
It's against principles, and I'm all about principles.
You are. You're principled.
So you are, Danny?
Me?
G4.
Sometimes principled off the board, maybe, but not on the board. You're right.
I don't know if I like this so much, because I am a principled player, but I also love the pair of bishops. So I think that I would be comfortable here as white, more comfortable than as black, although the position is not open, and we know that the bishops love open positions. This position is not so open.
Yeah, and this bishop is likely not going to do anything here on c6, everybody. The bishop served its purpose by adding some stress to the diagonal. Now that white has won the bishop pair, expect this bishop to find a home on d3 and just be happy with the bishop pair, as Anna was saying. But with the bishop pair being the major dynamic we'll focus on there, let's go to the game between the board 2 of the St. Louis Archbishops and board 4 for the Eagles. Again, the manager, Artak Manukyan. Anna, what system do you play as white?
I play e4.
I know, I feel like we've done so many shows together. I should have asked you that by now, right?
Well, you know about the French defense, which is the most important opening of my life.
That's right. I feel like you play the French with white and black somehow. I don't even know how.
Of course, I play one e3 and then d4.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, no, so this is a position that neither one of us has as a regular part of our repertoire, and I don't even think Hikaru plays this so much in Bullet. So this is a weird opening, and black is likely just going to make an exchange on d2. The other option for black was maybe to try for c5, and then we would have dual hanging pawns and a whole lot of simplification. So Manukyan plays bishop b4 check, and should end up getting a fine position out of the opening. Then puts the bishop on e7. For those who think this is against principles, it's an idea that's sort of common here, to get the bishop to move to a developing square that isn't on b2, where it's a little more natural when you play b3 to fianchetto. So an interesting idea there. I think black will just castle, and we'll have a QGD kind of pawn structure with an awkward bishop on d2. And maybe black just tries...
Can you translate QGD for those who might not understand?
Queen's Gambit declined.
Oh, thank you
That's
so
right. I
much,
forgot
Danny.
not everybody speaks Italian.
That's
so
right.
Great. What?
That sounds so great. QGD.
QGD, just like QID and BRB. The
and
kids
IQP.
only speak that way in LOLs. And
yeah, hashtag.
You know what? It's so funny because there's so many LOLs and BRBs and... WTF, why the face, that kind of thing, right?
Yeah, shouldn't we just comment like that?
Yeah,
like
we should. We should find a way to speak purely and,
So what do you think? Is Artak going to make an upset in this round? Because we are expecting him to show his powers. He was one of the board fours who performed the highest number of scores in the regular season and in the playoffs. We always say that his rating is not really reflecting his strength. Do you think that this is going to be the round when he can show it?
I think it's a round where if he's going to get an upset against one of the top players, it's a round as good as any, because as we've said, and we're harping on it again, but Schwierz is not the most experienced player in the Pro Chess League. And honestly, I don't really like his opening again. The black takes on c4 and plays c5, and okay, it's not that white is worse by any means, but I don't feel like Schwierz is getting anything special here out of the opening, and black can now play the move knight to c6. The pawn on d4 is pinned, as everyone can see, to the bishop on d3 via the queen. So there's something to figure out here, right? I mean, what do you think about this position as white? Black is playing knight c6, next move. I think he'll play it probably fairly quickly. Yep, here he goes. And there's pressure on d4, and that's real pressure. That's not fake pressure.
That's not fake pressure with the bishop on d2.
Not at all.
So
and
he's coming back to c1 so that then he can play bishop to b2. The trick is you can't take on d4 because in the end you will lose your queen due to bishop takes h7, discovered attack.
Right, very nice. Yeah, so defending via tactics, right? Bishop c1. Okay. And maybe that helps fix things, but I still feel that the time wasted there is giving black a little bit of an opportunity to maybe play against the hanging pawns. How would we approach this if we were black? I think taking, even if I'm not going to win the pawn, is an idea. I would love to be able to quickly develop though and start getting more pressure against the pawns. I don't know if I see a way to do that.
The problem of black is the c8 bishop. There's no comfortable way of developing it. You would like to play b6 bishop b7, or ideally b5, but not in this position. But it takes time. It takes quite some time to do that.
You'd almost want to try to make a move like knight b4 work, threatening to win the bishop pair, and if you could, play b5 next, right? Despite the idea that it gives up the pawn, maybe there's some tactics. Who knows? Maybe there's a way to take advantage of white's awkward-looking queenside development, right? And I think that even if it doesn't work, it's a good lesson for fans at home, because you have a position where you want to take advantage of white's weak pawns before he can fully coordinate and bring the bishop back to b2 and kind of complete development. So after takes, I like this idea of knight b4 and b5. We're looking at Dariush right there, and he seems calm and collected, so maybe he feels more comfortable with his position as white than we do. Artak has brought the queen to a5. We'll see how aggressive he gets with the lady, but before we do, let's jump back to another Petrov with a capture on c3. We saw this opening a few times with Yuri Borishek playing it as white. Your thoughts on this version of what we're seeing?
Both players are still playing very quick. I assume that they still know theory here. This is a theoretical position of the Petrov, and we see both players blitzing at the moves, which is usually the sign that they are very well aware of the position. The question is, who will know it better? h4, that's a move you like, Danny.
I love it, right? And if I can,
Harry going up the board.
Harry goes up the board. I mean, I'm not Simon Williams or anything, but I do like the idea of attacking. White can play bishop to d3 and put the knight on g5. Go after h7, and who knows what happens. But Yaro is, as we've said many times, Yaro is one of the best performing players in the Pro Chess League this year. Here he's played very quickly, so we're assuming he really knows what he's doing. Instinctively, though, I like white, and I look at the queen and her position against the king on the queen side without... Is there really a lot of concrete threats? Maybe the idea is so the bishop comes to e6, you hit a2, and if you can somehow induce b3, the queen would sit on a3, and now the rush of the a-pawn becomes a reality because you have the b3 anchor to open up things. But if a3 is played, who's really faster in the attack here, Anna? Something where white's coming with knight g5 and bishop d3, and what do you think when you see this? I'm instinctively biased to white here, but as we know, like against the French, my instincts are not always right.
I think this is still theory. I don't play this variation, but I have seen games like this, so I'm pretty sure that the players are still aware of the position, although it looks very sharp.
Yep.
So if you don't remember properly, or if the opponent has prepared better, that could be a factor in this kind of positions. Shout out to everyone, by the way, watching on Twitch. We are already over 13,000 people watching online, the first ever chess eSport event in San Francisco.
A lot of people getting active in the chat. Reminder, you have emotes for your favorite team. Let us know who you're cheering for, whether it's the Eagles or the Bishops, and make it be known. Get aggressive. Get aggressive with those emotes. Another player that is going to need to get aggressive to slow down board one of the Bishops, that is Grigorian here with the black pieces. What do we got here? This is a Pirtz / hyper modern / King's Indian here. The moment black just plays knight f6, and likely we get e4, and we just get a really simple transposition where once again we'll be missing the opinion and services of one Hikaru Nakamura, the expert in this line. All right. Looks like...
Is that really true? I'm just looking at the chat that Grandmaster Yasser Seiravan is also with us. Shout out to Grandmaster Yasser Seiravan. You've just been quoting him a couple of times during the stream.
Of course.
Person baby.
That's right. I quote Yasser for a living. Sometimes I quote Yasser at night in bed and things get really weird. But I love Yasser, the Morgan Freeman voice of chess. But Thanks for being here, Yaz. Let's jump back to the first game we started covering here between board 2 of the Armenia Eagles, Tersahakian, versus Forrest Chen. A very simple and safe advantage for white, everybody. The d5 pawn is isolated. White can bring the rook to d1, put the bishop on d4, and he does just that. At some point, you're going to see real threats of going after this pawn here, and it's difficult to play these kind of positions where you pretty much have the only positional weakness on the board. You don't really have many targets in your opponent's camp.
No, that's true. That's completely true. You would need another weakness to target because now black is going to defend the d5 pawn. Well, this is a typical IQP position. If we are already talking about these initials, IQP is one of the most popular of today.
IQP, Isolani, that's right. No, but it's typical, but in this case, it's the opposite. If you're just joining us, the first round game in the French defense, Akobian had a great victory as black, where there was an IQP out of the opening, isolated queen pawn, but he launched a big attack. For those wondering what's the difference in the imbalance, here black lacks minor pieces. Black wants a knight here, a bishop active, wants this bishop on an active square, not on e7. And when you have an isolated pawn, you naturally have open lines and open squares. And when you have a lot of minor pieces, often the pawn is defended. The best defense is not defending it because you're creating a bunch of counterplay. In this case, this is one of those positions where the pawn's weaknesses are going to really be highlighted. I think that white can put a piece on e5, the bishop on d4, and this is going to be one where either Forrest defends the pawn and doesn't lose, but white is playing for 2 results already here.
Certainly, and it's a passive position for black.
Completely passive. Let's move on to the game between. Okay, so that's the board 2 for the Eagles. Let's look at the game between the board 2 of the Bishops versus the manager from the Eagles, Mr. Manoukian. Here we have a game where, again, I like Manoukian. It's a similar theme in the sense that we have one player putting pressure against a weak pawn in the center. I know that it's not tactically possible to capture it, but okay, the imbalance here is black is struggling with development, though, right? So it's not as simple as black is the only one with targets. There's some activity problems here for black.
Yes, development of that bishop is still a struggle for black. So he has been trying to do something on the queen side. We have seen queen a5 before, and then he traded the dark squared bishops, which is an interesting idea, but I'm still looking at this as he would need quite some tempi, at least 2 moves to get in to develop his bishop, and that is time. In this position, it's not a closed position, so he doesn't have all the time in the world to develop his pieces.
Yep. Yeah, and the 94 move is nice, everybody. The reason why this isn't a threat, even though there isn't a immediate development of this bishop with a win of the rook, but this knight can take on f6 with check, and then we will see the bishop move with the discovered attack for the queen on d1. So the tactics here are pretty tricky for Manoukian. He needs to figure out how he wants to get this bishop developed, but keep pressure against this pawn. I think if I was playing black, I would probably capture on e4, and then be very careful, because I don't want there to be some sort of Greek gift sacrifice over here on h7. But let's see. Maybe even a simple move. I wonder if I can play a move like h6 or g6. And I guess my biggest issue is, how is white really going to take advantage of the fact that I haven't developed my bishop yet? I like my queen's position. I still like the pressure on d4. I guess white might have ideas of taking on c6 and using the e5 square. So unbalanced. Perhaps Fierce finds a way to use his development lead while black struggles there. But finding a way to use online chess in a way that it has never been done before. One person has done that better than almost anybody in history, and that is Pro Chess League Commissioner Greg Shahade. He is actually now being joined in this opening stage by women's FIDE master Alexandra Botez, and we're going to go to them right now.
I'm here with Greg Shahade, the creator of the Pro Chess League. Greg, what's it like seeing your dream come to life?
It's pretty surreal because I'm used to just watching everyone online, and now they're sitting across from each other. So, it's just really exciting to be a part of it.
What do you think about chess and the future of it potentially becoming a real esports?
Well, I really like how as soon as a game ends, there's like clapping, applause, and there's a gasp when somebody finds a good tactic. And in normal tournaments you can't do that, and I think that adds a lot of color to everything. So I want to see more of that. I like the energy here.
Do you want to see the chess audience being even more louder and more energetic?
Yes.
There we go. We're going to have to remind the audience about that. What are your thoughts on the position so far?
In this round, I like Sviart's position because the bishop on c8 looks a little shaky against Manukyan. I like playing against isolated pawns, so I kind of like Tersahakian's position. The other two games look interesting to me, but I guess balanced.
And last question, since you created the Pro Chess League, are you thinking of ever competing in it?
Well, if you're the commissioner of the league, I think I can't compete because then I'd like force my opponent to resign. I'd create new rules to make sure I win every game, so I'm probably going to avoid doing that.
Fair enough. Back to you guys.
All right, well, that's a good reason for Greg not to play. He already does enough creating rules. Inside joke for all of us involved in the Pro Chess League. We don't want him to create any more rules for him to win. So, all right, but let's go to some positions that have chess rules that matter. In this position, Black did eventually induce b3, and with the queen on a3, that makes me think there's real potential for an attack. And suddenly, I'm thinking that White isn't getting as much underway against Black's kingside as I thought he would. Zavine Andreassian is board 1 for the Eagles, so every game he plays is a game that really matters. We know that they're up a game right now in the match, Anna, but here I feel like Yaro is doing just fine.
I feel the same way, and I was wondering what happened to the knights. There used to be a knight on f3, so they traded on d4.
What happens to the knights? That's right, what happened to the knights? Not what happened that night. That's a different question. But what happened to the knights? That's what we're asking right now. They were traded. So White chose to undouble the c-pawns rather than
going for knight g5.
Yeah, rather than going for knight g5.
Idea.
So that's what happened. I would have done something more aggressive over here on the king side, but positionally from White's perspective, at the very least, there's no more weaknesses, and maybe Andreassian plans to meet a5 with a move like queen to b2. If you can get the queens off the board, you're not really worried about your king getting checkmated, and that might be part of the plan here.
So suddenly, from a position that we thought that could turn into a very sharp game, we will see
we're likely going to get an endgame, yeah.
Endgame with some space advantage for White. So
making John Urschel very proud, right? Get the queens off the board and he's happy.
I would also be very happy here as White. No checkmate. I have a better position, slightly better for White.
That's right.
And you can play 70 more moves and then you win.
That's right. Well, not really my style, but let's move to a game that might get more my style. Here we have Akobian and Grigorian. This is a little weird. It's a King's Indian, I guess, kind of, but with such an early expansion in the center, what happened in this modern? It starts out with a d4, g6. White is transposing things, attempting to transpose things directly into a traditional King's Indian, but rather than knight f6 and e4, everybody, which is exactly what would be a King's Indian defense, Black plays the move knight to c6, a really unorthodox move order, allowing the loss of time for the knight to go back. And the reason you do something like this, everyone, is just to create the potential of newfound awkwardness, right? Some people just like to make it weird, and that's what Black...
awkwardness. I love how you said that.
Yeah, Black is just, and that's not just me trying to highlight stuff. Black is trying to open up lines, and when you get this pawn to push voluntarily, it becomes a target in itself. Black will play for c6 and e6 and try to create threats against the center. So it's an interesting and unorthodox, and I mean, to be frank, probably a slightly dubious variation for Black. Not necessarily the best, but you know, if I had to guess, Grigorian has a strategy that he wants to get the game out of theory against Akobian. Sometimes players decide that if they get the position to be a little weird, more flexible, right, something that Akobian hasn't seen before, maybe they have a better chance on a practical level.
I wonder if this is the round where this was a good strategy, because I thought that usually Grandmasters go for this when they have a lower-rated opponent. Now, this is not the case here, since Grigorian is playing board 1 of the Archbishops, fellow Armenian players. They get on very well.
American now, Akobian's been in the U.S. for a while, but yeah, an Armenian player for sure.
So I was wondering if this is the best strategy to play an offbeat variation against the strongest opponent that you will have today, and with the black pieces.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I agree with you that it seems a little weird than what we're talking about, but did he just win the d5 pawn?
It looks like.
What's happening here?
We see him right now on the camera as well.
Well, he's shaking his head, though. We saw Grigorian on camera just now kind of shaking his head. Some players shake their head when they're winning, right? We know Hikaru has 1.5 million facial expressions.
And you are the expert in
I am the expert. I translate fluent Nakamura facial expression. But what's going on here? So knight takes d5. Why doesn't he like this? After takes and takes, I don't know that I see the immediate issue. Maybe there's another move here. Is there something? Okay, is there some sort of tactic immediately on the board right here, right now that might take advantage of Black's position? I don't know. Do you see anything? I mean, I feel like Black wins this pawn. We're not trying to trade queens. We're going to trade on d5. And okay, there's something to be said for the fact that this isn't the healthiest pawn I've ever seen. It's an isolated pawn on an open file where there's already immediate tactics at some point. So you would assume that White is going to find a way to target and win some material back. But at the same time, I don't see anything immediate that says knight takes d5 was a blunder for Black. And a pawn is a pawn, as Yasser would say.
Oh, certainly a pawn is a pawn. But what were the last couple of moves? The last move of White was queen to d2. So in this position, he knows that Black wants to take on d5.
Right.
And he plays queen d2. He didn't have a way to protect that pawn, or he has a plan here.
Yeah, well, we're going to find out. Let's come back to this in just a moment. The tactics in the position between Shahade and Forrest Chen are getting wild. That's a hanging knight on c6, everyone, but the bishop on e7 is under fire, and guessing the last move was knight e5. Knight e5 to c6. Okay, so if you're thinking about it from a perspective where Black has been worse, we've had this IQP we were talking about, isolated queen pawn, right? If a bunch of pieces get traded and you end up losing your biggest weakness but getting one of these other weaknesses in return, you're almost always happy. But what White is doing here is he's not really allowing that, because by trading off this bishop, he's creating a new problem for Black, which is really the fact that the king side is going to come under fire. The bishop on d4 is super dangerous, and combine that with the fact that the rooks are here, and I'm just thinking about the idea that this queen is going to slide over. I feel the tension over here.
I believe that you're completely correct in this position. White's position is superior because of the factors you mentioned. After rook e8, I believe that he will try to keep the e5 by playing rook d to e1.
I agree. I'd anticipate that. If he takes on, so there's ideas where you start thinking maybe you could take f6, but just one tip for everyone. Not only would this probably be a bad idea because you don't want to be in a position where you're trading your opponent's biggest weakness and letting them win something back. But also you have to be very careful about back rank tricks. So I think it makes a lot more sense for White to build on this tension, not try to simplify and just win material yet. You want it to get to a point where your opponent is sort of begging you to take the weakness. You don't want to let them trade it for any other sort of target. So I expect rook e1, and on that note, I expect that Shahade will continue to have an edge against Forrest Chen. Okay, we've had a lot more moves take place in this game as we left it. Queen to e7 was played by Manukyan. He goes after the hanging pawns. I kind of like it.
And now the bishop is coming, so he had a plan of playing bishop d7, bishop to c6, but with the knight on a5,
hanging,
you just can't place both pieces on c6.
Right, unfortunately. Why can't two pieces share a square, right?
No,
can we get a rule check on that from the commissioner?
I would love
Maybe that would be a rule he would give himself if he played in the league. Two pieces can share one square. No, you're right. I mean, it's a problem here because White doesn't. You think Black is on the route to freeing the bishop and taking care of this problem we've been highlighting, but White doesn't allow it, right? Queen a5, hitting the knight. Black has to settle. Everyone hates settling right there. Knight g5, and now White is still bringing a lot of pressure, and we see that the thing we've highlighted about this bishop on d7 or the light squares being a problem is what's coming to reality here. Schwierz hasn't really moved from that position. He's in the thinking man pose.
I think he feels like he's being portrayed. He doesn't move a single
millimeter.
He's
being portrayed. Yeah, he's just frozen. Maybe he's cold or something. Who knows?
Very focused. That's a very focused Dariusz Schwierz from Poland, currently studying in the U.S. and sporting the jersey of the St. Louis Archbishops over his shirt.
That's right. All right. Well, let's go back to the game between Akobian and Grigorian, because we had a couple moves. So it looks like Black did just get that pawn cleanly, at least for now. I think the thing we foreshadowed will come to fruition, that White's going to get a lot of pressure on the d-file, and it seems very likely simplification will happen here. White's probably going to get that pawn back, everybody, due to the fact that it's very weak. And the question for Black is he creating enough counterplay? He's got this open bishop on the diagonal, the pressure here against a2. To compensate for that, so he sort of maintains the extra pawn indirectly by getting new targets, or is this just going to peter out? But I don't think Akobian has anything special here for the pawn that was lost on d5.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I'm still puzzled because he went for this with queen d2. He knew that that pawn was going to fall. Maybe his reason is that black is still undeveloped, and as you have mentioned, the d6 pawn is not the best pawn in the world. It's a very weak pawn for the moment. So black is struggling to finish development. The d6 pawn is a target for white. From white's perspective, it is a target that he will be attacking. But is it enough? Is it enough for the price of a pawn? Because we are pawn grabbers.
Yep. No, it's not for me.
Not
I think
for
black
me
can play
either.
queen b5 here.
Not for me.
I don't know why he's taking a lot of time. Queen b5 threatens the b2 pawn, which would be another pawn, speaking of pawn grabbers that we are. So I think somehow something went wrong here, and I was surprised to see Grigorian kind of shaking his head on camera there. But we'll come back to it. The game that we talked about was heading to John Urschel's dream. For those of you who don't know, the former NFL player streams regularly on Twitch, and he's known as an endgame lover. Not necessarily an endgame expert, but he loves endgames.
He's an expert.
He is. He's an expert in our hearts.
I tested his knowledge a couple of times.
Yeah.
On Fridays, I stream with John, and he has solved almost all the endgame positions that I have given him.
He's seen a lot of endgames. I agree with that. So now we're in an endgame. The queens are off the board, and from my perspective, I think that favors black because I feel like Andreasen kind of had to do that given that black's attack was so far ahead of things, everyone, if you remember back in the position after a5. There really wasn't much of a choice but to try to get the queens off the board, which is what Andreasen did. And now black is playing c6, a nice move, opening up the rook to hit the bishop on c3, but also highlighting that there's no real simple way to defend this pawn. You don't want to take here. I'm not even sure how black would take back here, and maybe even just with the pawn and open up the b file because that b4 pawn is a very clear target.
It is a very clear target. I like b takes c6 for the same reason. Opened up the b5 for the rook. Later, you can either push c5 or d5, and that f8 bishop will be attacking the b4 pawn.
Yeah, nice point there. Yeah, and that could be some dysfunction for white to figure out on the queen side. And I think that the time on the clock, while it's close to even, shows that Yaro is at least keeping pace right now with Andreasen. We can see Andreasen right there played the move king to c1. And, okay, we'll see how he reacts right now to the move c takes d5, instantly playing king to d2. So zero hesitation, but he had to lose that pawn on d5 in order to reach coordination. I'm still guessing that c6 was a strong move for Yaro. It really forced this whole idea because black is up a pawn now, and there's still ideas of using the c file if you're black. So, all right, we'll keep an eye on this one. The game that's really getting down to the wire, though, is this one here where Tirsahaken, what happened against Forrest Chen? He's
10
down
seconds?
on time.
Oh, my. Okay, he has taken on a5.
What in the world? We can hear the crowd getting louder down there. I don't know if the drinks are kicking in or what. It's great.
Oh, certainly the bar is open.
I'm wondering. People are getting louder, and this game here is getting more exciting. And is Forrest Chen about to shock the world again?
Maybe we are seeing Forrest Chen in his best, best shape today at the Pro Chess League semifinals.
Right now, we were in the position where we were both liking this for black. Right here, everybody, the transition. White won the bishop. And we were expecting rook d to e1, something to be maintained a little more aggressively. But perhaps knight e4 was a bigger problem than we thought, right? Because it does guard g3, so there's no immediate queen switcheroo and go for g7 checkmate. Because of that, white decides to retreat. But with the offer of simplification, suddenly black is really out of the weeds. One of the things about an isolated pawn is that if you're in a minor piece ending, it's typically totally fine for you because what white really wants is the major pieces to gang up against the pawn and to force black to be passive. In this case, the bishop is almost useless all of a sudden because this pawn is on a light square, so this is just sort of a helpless bystander. This is a very well played there, and I'm just shocked that white was unable to get anything, and combine that with the current position where he's just under time pressure.
He did manage to get a pawn in the end, but as you have mentioned, only 10 seconds on the clock, and now black is activating his knight. I think that Forrest Chen was once again proving that he's a lot stronger than his rating. This is 600 points rating difference between the two players, and he is fighting back.
Yeah, and so he won the pawn as you were saying, but here comes knight e2 check. And okay, so
king h2, and the question is if black has
anything with a move like queen to b1. Okay, there's moves like f3, I'm guessing, will be played pretty quickly. He has to guard g1 with the bishop, and okay, he does it. So yeah, he's defending, and I'm just okay, but black is still on the prowl here, and with the queen and the knight going to work here.
Whoa, we have a result.
We have a result with wow, what happened there? We missed the immediate finish, but a crazy position on the board as we left it. Yeah, okay, Schwierz was really starting to get on the grind here with the move knight to g5, and d5 immediately followed it, a move that I didn't even see coming, but just perfectly timed, actually. Manukyan really getting just crushed here on the e-file, everybody. You can't take on d5 with the knight or the pawn, because at the end of the line, the queen, or not actually that. Duh. Oh, we have more.
Result.
No, we have to find it.
We are
Forrest Chen again coming up with a draw, and the St. Louis fans are going nuts here.
Huge applause in the crowd. Everyone is rooting for the young boy, Forrest Chen, once again proving that he's a lot stronger than the number next to his name.
Well, with that, we see that the Bishops win their second game of the round, with Schwierz already having a crushing victory over Manukyan, and with Chen getting a draw. I say it's a win in the round because it's a moral victory, as Chen holds his own against both board 1 and board 2 from the Armenia Eagles. It's just amazing.
This is impressive. And what Hikaru said is that Andresian and Tersakhayan are the key players of the Eagles. If they are not in their best shape, the Eagles will have problems. So far, they both drew against Forrest Chen.
Ominous words from Hikaru Nakamura, coming back to haunt us. Story of my life. There you go.
He's playing live, I think.
Yeah, he is.
I've seen him a couple of times.
He's been playing live, and he's right now with Forrest Chen just holding his own. I mean, he puts the Bishops in great shape because they're supposed to be higher rated with, as Hikaru said, GMs on the top boards that Armenia really can't match up with. So unless upsets happen there, at this point, the Bishops are in the early driver's seat of the match. Although Andreassian seems to be doing well here. This is an interesting thing that happened in this inning where he gave up that pawn on d5, but he's been able to compensate for it with the much more active king, and black is on the defensive right now. Still amazing that Tersakhayan was unable to get anything out of that isolated queen pawn, or though he eventually won the pawn, that it led to that position with the queen and knight forcing a perpetual, everybody. The last few moves forced by white because black's mating net with the queen and the knight was just going to be too strong. So amazing stuff. We're going to stick right here in the game between Yaroslav Zerabuk and Zavin Andreassian. We'll see.
So it's 3-3 at the moment. The Archbishops have tied the score after losing the first round against the Eagles. What do you think these last two games will bring?
I feel like this one between Andreassian and Zerabuk is white's game, but I feel like it could go either way, because I think Andreassian wants to win, and how far is he going to push? How hard is he going to push to win this position? Zerabuk being under time pressure and white's king being on d4, I feel like white is playing for two results, but where's the clear plan? These double pawns are actually quite useful at keeping the white king out of entering on the king side.
They are, and I'm wondering if there could be something done. Of course, I love that white's king is very active, but the pawn is a pawn still.
Pawn is a pawn, but this is sort of a staring contest. I don't know that either side creates much for themselves without giving their opponent even more. I mean, if white tries to play for h5, are there entry points given with the king? If not, okay, maybe black can play even g5, and now this king is frozen to prevent black from getting more active himself. So I don't really know that I see anything with h5 or g5 being spectacular for white, which means where's the counterplay? Okay, this a3 pawn is possibly weak. The rook could swing around, but who helps corral the pawn?
Well, he plays rook g1, aiming for g5, rook h8.
I like that move.
Or going for the h5, which might be opened.
Well, I think right now he's just saying g5 is not going to be a threat as long as I can take and make sure that my rook gets active. So
after f4, clearly he wants to push f5, kick this bishop away from e6, and you will not be able to take on f5 with the bishop because of rook f1 pinning the piece and winning the bishop.
Yeah. So white still in control here, kind of making black just shuffle back and forth.
I guess he will go for f5, but the question is, when is the best moment? He's still preparing it. a3 is a target, so
that's
he's
a very
looking
nice
at
move.
the a3
That's
pawn.
a indirect assault of the a3 pawn, everybody. Indirect assault. Very
Another
dangerous.
idea
Yeah.
I thought could be c3, bishop c2, bishop b3 to attack the d5 pawn. So he has plenty of ideas. The a3 pawn is a target, the d5 pawn is a target, and f5 is always in the air.
Okay, you've convinced me. I agree. Yeah,
I love
mean,
endgames.
Andreasen is definitely in control here, and he's taking a moment to think here. What's he calculating? Don't know. He might be listening to some music there.
Classical music or white noise? That's a great
One or the other.
choice.
But I like your idea of c3 and relocating the bishop. I think from Black's perspective, if you play c3, the moment you do, at the very least, you lose this third rank opportunity to attack the a-pawn, and maybe I can play rook to c8 to try to hit the c4 square, preventing you from sort of fulfilling the destiny of relocating the bishop.
But if you have to do that, it means that your rook is not going away from the c-file.
That's true. The issue here is, okay, who's going to want to play a forcing move first? We see f5, and the point, everybody, is that taking f5 was not possible because of rook f3 would have pinned the bishop to the king. But those last moves played in pure, rapid fashion there means that both players calculated it. Unfortunately for Yaro, it may be because he was in a forced scenario, and now he's really on the defensive with this king getting to this nice square on b3. Yeah, this is looking tougher and tougher for Black.
I agree with you. Andreasen is in the driver's seat. What's happening on the other board?
Here we have Akobian and Gregorian still going at it. Gregorian also doing well. I mean, it's interesting. The storyline of the match coming in, I think for sure, was how well Tersahakian and Andreasen would do. Right now, their board 4 for St. Louis has kept them in check. But the board 2 and 3 matchup, so far the board 2 and 3 have been playing better for the Eagles. And if Gregorian can get a draw here, which I feel like he's in a pretty good position to do against Akobian, that's also a good result for the Eagles.
3-3 at the moment. This could be a draw. That's what we are guessing with Danny and Andreasen trying to win against Jaroslav Jerebuk.
Andreasen is trying to win. I like this move, knight e2. He's going to bring it to f4. The issue here, everybody, is that white can't actually kick the knight, but without h3 falling in a lot of positions. Also from f4, the knight is currently threatening to play knight d3 check and hit b2. So, okay, I know Akobian is the higher rated player on paper, but I really like the way Gregorian is taking his approach to this endgame. I'm actually not sure what does Akobian do now, because the bishop is okay. He goes to c4. Now I'm wondering, is there an opportunity to take and then play knight d3 check and b5?
Whoa, a result!
We have another result?
Crowd is the
no,
best
I don't think so.
announcer.
No, we almost have a result. Time pressure. Oh, we do have a result. Zabine Andreasen wins on time.
Wow. And the position, what was the position like?
We turned to the position just in time, and that's because Yaroslav was under pressure. He was under pressure, and he, I feel like the crowds between the Bishops and the Eagles are going at it. Like they're trying to cheer louder, louder than the other fans, because we've heard big cheers for Forrest Chen and the Bishops, and that was a big cheer for the Eagles. So Andreasen just played a stellar endgame. You were right, Anna. I was wrong. White had more of an edge in this endgame than I thought. Just good technique, creating a situation where a3 was going to fall and White would have the 2-on-1 edge. Black took on f5, and after rook f3, blundered the fact that yes, bishop takes f7 is a threat to win the bishop, but stopping that was less important than stopping bishop d3, which pins the bishop.
Oh my, that's not a mistake that a grandmaster would normally fall into.
Just an absolute blunder there. Yeah, Yaro needed to move the king and sacrifice the pawn, but he missed it. So with that, we're back to the position, the only one still going, and a huge one for the Eagles. They're up a point right now, as you can see, and if they can find a way to get at least a draw here, they maintain their edge heading into round 3. And I like Gregorian.
I wanted to say the same. The knight is beautiful on f4. That's a very strong piece. Do we have a result? Because
they're just cheering. They're just cheering. Knight f4, h4. Here we go. The question is, I think this is actually a much harder endgame for White than they realize. Okay, plays g3. That's a nice idea, taking advantage of the fact knight takes h3, king g2, so you can't take the pawn. He takes, Now, is he going to play f5 to keep everything at bay? Yeah, he plays f5, and I think in a lot of positions you can even be threatening moves like knight d5 because the king and pawn ending is likely winning for black at this point if the black king is more active. h4.
You're taking advantage of this f4 knight. It's supported by the g5 pawn. So what's the way out for black? He will have
knight
to give a
h5 check can be played.
Yes.
And at the very least, okay, he goes knight g6, which also defends the pawn indirectly because it threatens f4.
Yeah, much nicer than knight h5.
Yep. And no time for Jacobian. He thinks, but here, this is the question: is the king and pawn? Who's the king and pawn ending winning for, if anybody?
Well, we need to calculate.
Something tells me that black is winning. Actually, if you take h4, here's my line: takes, takes, takes. We have king e5, king g5, and then you play b5. And you're winning. If b4, a6, if a4, you take, and then a5. White's in
yes, and if
one.
a4 check king e4, that's the famous position in every pawn.
And he goes for it. Oh, he missed it. Did he just flat out miss his chance? Or was there something? No. No, he did.
He did miss it. Knight takes h4, and he didn't take the knight.
He didn't take the knight. Okay, we're going to back up and take a look, because this could be a critical moment in the match if Grigorian is unable to come away with a victory, which would have put Armenia with a 2-0 lead. Now suddenly Jacobian has worked himself into the better version of the knight endgame.
And it's going to be a draw.
Likely a draw. Yeah, still likely not enough to win, but okay, 6 seconds. Is Grigorian playing for a win here to flag Jacobian, or is he just settling on a draw? What's going on? Knight c4, knight a3, he's going to give up f5 and go for the queen side?
I think he has to go for the draw because this f5 pawn is more important than the a3 pawn.
Has to be, right? After king g6, knight d6, and I think we're going to see a draw. And Anna and I don't go anywhere, are going to immediately back up and take a quick look. So a draw indeed happens, but let's take a look at this position right here. The question is, did Grigorian miss a win with the idea of capturing on h4? If he takes, and the king takes with the move king to e5. So the line we didn't look at was king g3, which we have to, but I'm pretty sure we were right that on king to g5, black is winning on the spot with the move b5. The point is that white will run into zugzwang at some point, and f4 loses to this move, a typical king dance. And if king g6, king f4, eventually we head over to the king side, and black wins because he's up a tempo. This is a well-known king and pawn ending idea, where black plays king a4, zugzwang opposition, and eventually you take here.
That was very well explained, Danny. I'm so impressed with your endgame skills.
So thank you. I watched Anna Rudolph's premium video series on Chess.com. Such a great king and pawn ending series.
This is called Airplane and Minefields on Chess.com.
I called it the king dance, but you know,
you're more romantic than I am. I went for the military terms.
To each his own.
Airplanes and minefields.
We've got the king. So the question is, was king g3 possible? So king g3 along the same route of the airplanes and minefields. Black can't play f4. Because now king g4 and white will eventually put black in zugzwang. The point is, everybody, even if white runs out of moves first, it doesn't matter because king g5 comes and black is losing. But, okay, we first, after king e5, king g4, king g3, but if black moves first and puts white in zugzwang, is he winning in this sort of situation where his king is so active? I think he should be.
Definitely, and that was something that he could have tried because there's just no chance that he's losing this.
Yeah.
I wonder why he was afraid of entering the pawn
If f4 he wins, by the way, and if king here, king e3 wins.
Yeah.
He's just winning.
I think this was winning, and even if he didn't calculate it till the end, this was a very good chance with a better king.
So I know Grigorian's probably listening to our loudspeakers right now. We're sorry to do it to you, buddy, but you missed a win in this position. Knight takes h4, a winning king and pawn ending. Confirmed by Danny and Anna. Whether that means anything to you or not,
doesn't mean anything, it seems. But let's hope that our crowd can actually approve. If they are still
the crowd
with
should
us,
approve of that. That was some detailed analysis there. If you didn't learn anything from that king and pawn ending, you just weren't paying attention.
I know.
No, seriously.
I think it was very well explained. I'm very impressed. I think this was winning, and I think this was a missed chance. Still, the Eagles are leading with
by
this draw.
Point.
There's
but
a
win by their board 3 over Jacobian.
That would have been
absolutely huge chance for the Eagles missed here. And quick calculation, I think we get credit because we saw that it was winning during the game, not just with the analysis.
And we don't have engines on.
That's right. And so a missed opportunity there. But either way, let's take a quick look at the scores. as we know that Armenia maintains the one-game lead. Okay, Armenia, not Martini. Speaking of martinis, Armenia maintains the one-game lead heading into the next round. Let's check in actually with the fans as the players take a quick break. Make sure. Okay, so we're gonna take a quick break actually for a second. We're being told that we have something to take care of here on site, so don't go anywhere. You sit right there. We'll be right back.
In 2 minutes.
And as we get set here for round 3 of the matchup between the St. Louis Archbishops and the Armenia Eagles, sort of a halftime, so to speak, as the players switch sides on the table here in the live crowd, we have women's FIDE master Alexandra Botez, who's caught up with the star of the day so far for the Bishops, playing better than almost anybody on their team, the young Forrest Chen. Go ahead, Alexandra.
I'm here with National Master Forrest Chen. Forrest, today you have a performance rating of almost 26. Grit.
Well, I mean, I try to take them one at a time and never give up, I guess.
You don't live in St. Louis. How are you playing on their team? How did they recruit you?
Well, I was recruited by Mr. Kummer when I was playing at his tournament. He sent an email after and asked me to play for their team.
They're lucky to have you. In your first game, you seemed to be in a worse position, but you were able to get a draw. What do you think the most critical moment was, and how did you feel pulling off a draw?
It was probably after he took on C3 and allowed me to get this drawn endgame. And, well, I felt really happy, of course. I mean, instead of having 0, I got 0.5, 0.5, so very happy, yeah.
You weren't able to hear it because you had headphones on, but the crowd was going wild when you pulled off a draw. How do you feel having such a huge fan base for you right now?
I mean, of course it's cool. I mean, I played, I think, interesting, and I guess they liked it, so I'm happy about that, yeah.
Last question. You're the youngest person here. Does that make you feel excited, nervous?
Well, I guess it makes me feel excited because there's not much expectation. I can just play my best chess and see what happens from there, yeah.
Thank you. Going back to you guys.
Yeah, and he's done phenomenal, right? He's got a performance rating as high as anybody on his team right now. And like he said, he had all good pro answers there, right? Just answering things calmly, just stays focused in the moment, does his best, and never gives up. That should be pretty inspiring for any other young chess players out there. Anna is back, I've been flying solo, but she's here. Don't worry, you won't have to deal with just me on camera for much longer. Anna, Alexandra just caught up with Forrest Chen, and he just seems like a pro all around. But the thing I find most interesting about Forrest playing for the Bishops, Alexandra asked, you're not from St. Louis, and he's not a grandmaster, but it shows that in the Pro Chess League format, you have a big part of building a successful team is not just finding top grandmasters, but actually finding underrated board fours. And
So
Mike Kummer, the manager of the St. Louis Archbishops, champion manager, right? He's the defending champion. Because of the team in St. Louis won last year, he recruited for us from across the country to be their board four, to be a free agent. I just find that phenomenal and such a great testament to the format of the league, that you're looking for both grandmaster level participation, but also those diamonds in the rough, and those are just as valuable free agents as anybody else.
I agree with you, and this is such a cool feature of the Pro Chess League, that aspiring chess players can find their spot, and they deserve that spot. They play the same players. Board 4 doesn't just play board 4, they play board 1, board 2, board 3 of each and every match, and the board 4 as well. So I think here it clearly shows that every player's value is the same. It doesn't matter on which board you are just as valuable to your team.
And even a low-rated player that doesn't always do well affords the opportunity for there to be higher-rated players on the other boards, right? So there's a lot of strategy that goes into building a successful team. A former student of mine actually told me mid-season that he filled out the free agent form as a young underrated player too, hoping to get recruited as a free agent. And he didn't get recruited, but I told him don't play FIDE games, give him horrible coaching advice, just get a really high USCF rating and then be low-rated FIDE. No, I'm kidding, but seriously, it's a great story. It's phenomenal to see Forrest Chen doing so well, getting draws of the first 2 rounds for the Bishops, and he has his team only 1 game behind. As they head into the 3rd round. A missed opportunity again. So you and I were highlighting this king and pawn ending, but as we can see there from the score, you see Forrest Chen in the next game will be taking on Careen Gregorian. So that'll be an interesting one. We'll see if he can just keep on keeping on, right? He's gotten draws against the 2 strongest ones. So as Forrest Gump once said, Forrest Chen does. Might as well just keep on drawing, right? I mean, that's where Forrest Chen is headed right now. I've already drawn 2 games, so might as well keep on drawing. Forrest Gump references will not stop for the rest of the day, so don't you worry about that. But, okay, what else do you see when you look at those matches, Anna, as another one that you're really excited about in round 3?
I think the Manukyan game, because I feel like he will bring an upset. So far he has lost his first 2 games, but I think that he will at least draw in one of the remaining 2 rounds, if not win, because he has actually performed so well in the regular season. He has beaten several grandmasters, so I'm expecting something big from him as well, not just Forrest Chen. The board 4s are key here.
Right, well, you asked last round if I thought it was the round he might get an upset, and I said Schweers seems to be a little bit rusty in the format, but he didn't come away with a victory or a draw. So Manukyan, being the underrated board 4 we know he is, this is his chance, right, to come away with something, but he's going to have his work cut out for him, taking on Yaroslav Zarabuk. As you can see right there, they are faced off against each other, getting set to play round 3. As all the players are getting set to play round 3, we are set to cover them. There's the hero so far of the day, Mr. Forrest Chen, national master.
16 years old, the youngest participant of the finals.
And again, a key free agent acquisition, which is what I love about the format. I love the team environment. I love the opportunity for a star to rise and make a huge impact, even if they're not a super grandmaster. Varakobian, right there, getting set to play. He'll be playing tougher opponents from here on out. Obviously, the games get closer and closer to board 1s facing off from each team. And right there we see Dariusz Schweers getting set to play his game as well. Very classy looking. He's got the jersey on over the collared shirt. He can't hear me right now, so I don't even have to say that. But he does look classy.
This is what we were talking about before. He barely moves, and I really feel like he's a sculpture himself. Zavin Andresian, his opponent, sitting in front of him, and there we are. Daniel, look at that polo.
You like the polo?
I
like
love
the
polo
too. Yeah, they're the new polos, new commentator polos. This will be a look we go with in the future as well for next year's Pro Chess League. But the games are underway. You said it. Artak Manukyan is one that you'd like to focus on. This game, he's taking on Yaroslav Zarabuk. An interesting transposition here, as you can see, that it started out actually with an Al Johans defense, okay? but White chose not to play aggressive into the main lines with e5, perhaps afraid that Yaro prepared with a Hikaru Nakamura or something. Doesn't want to go in the main lines of the Al Johan, just plays knight c3. And after d6, we've transposed into a Pierce, d4, g6, and more transpositions to go with at g3. So not nearly the opening we thought we might get with one knight f6, but Manukyan trying to stick to something that he's more comfortable with. Here we have a double fianchetto opening to start. Not something you see every day from the move order e4, knight f6.
Yeah, certainly, and I'm still impressed with your pronunciation of Al Johan.
Al Johan.
Not everybody knows that that's a yo in Russian. It's not an e, it's a yo. So the e with 2 dots on top of it.
Me and Al Johan were super close in a past life. It's not a big deal. We were just super close. It's weird. Yeah, me and Al Johan, we go way back. He's got a Pierce, and I was just wondering, are we going to see another awkward knight c6? So this is not as awkward here in the c4 queen's pawn game where we saw knight c6 played. The knight was immediately kicked back. Here it makes a little more sense for black, as getting e5 is easier and you're not as worried about d5 when white doesn't have as much space. But we'll see. Knight e2 is flexible for Manukyan, and the point is he doesn't usually want to play a move like knight f3 in these structures, because here bishop g4 will come in. White is dealing with the pressure on d4, so black is happily departing with the bishop here in a lot of cases to get sort of an over grip of the dark squares. So that's kind of what Manukyan, is avoiding there. Flip the board by accident. So we'll see how Zerobuk chooses to approach the opening from here. Castles, Rekharovka, makes sense. Again, you're an e4 player, but this wouldn't be how you would play against an Al Johan's defense, I'm imagining.
No, not really. I'm still puzzled by how they transposed from an Al Johan to a modern, and now it's
like a g3 King's Indian, but the pawn's on c2, and I honestly I know Manukyan kind of thrives a little bit on these unorthodox systems. We've seen him do it all year in the Pro Chess League, but today I feel like it just hasn't been working against the high-rated opponents.
True.
He got it handed to him in a French, as much as it pains me to say that. Next to my co-host here, the French goes wild. Then he struggled in the last round as well, worse out of the opening, and I feel like I don't know that I'm thrilled with White's approach in this opening either. And the reason I say that, everybody, is after d5, knight e7, what we have here is a pawn chain that's actively facing the king side and a very natural plan for black. You're going to move this knight, you're going to play f5. You might also play for c6 in some of these positions. They're both completely normal plans, and they're both better than they normally are in a King's Indian, because white doesn't have this pawn on c4. Look, I can try to do it, but the Chess.com bugs prevent me.
Oh, my.
Darn Chess.com bugs. I can't go there, right?
Oh,
so
the rules of chess.
Classic, right? And so if I can't play c4, then I don't have b4, and I don't have c5. So the issue here is that white doesn't have the space you would normally want to have on the queen side. And so that makes this an even better version of a King's Indian than we normally have. So, you agreeing with what I'm...
I do agree. I think he shouldn't go for d5 for the reason that you have mentioned. He would still need to take time to move the c3 knight away, and then push c4, b4. So if you don't want to go for d5, what shall be the plan here? I feel like he wants to place the bishop on e3, but now you can't really go bishop e3 because of knight g4.
Exactly, yeah. So are you going to play h3 first? And can you get away with it? h3 takes. You might be able to get away with it if there's no immediate tactics of discovery because of knight to c6, maybe?
Knight c3.
Yeah, and at the end of the line, we have one of these weird positions where I blacked out like 5 moves ago.
I
stopped paying attention. I have no idea what's going on. It's way too much work for me.
Black is a pawn out.
Right? I mean, is this even fun for anybody? Too many pieces being captured here. But no, it is something white has to be really careful about, to play h3 with the idea of Anna saying, I would agree in principle to maintain this tension, but I'm wondering if you can. That'll be the question, right? If black is tactically punishing you, then h3 is not an option. But if h3 is not an option, then bishop e3 isn't an option, because bishop e3 would be happily met by knight g4, either winning the dark square bishop or more with it. So this is tough, and Manukyan is proving that he's not super comfortable by the way he's managing his clock. So, all right, we've been a little critical of the manager of the year in many ways. By the way,
he
Greg,
has given us so many cool gifts that I'm not sure that we should be so cruel to him.
Yeah, we don't want to be, but we got to be honest about the game. But Greg, I know you're listening. That's actually a really good reward for next year. There should be a manager of the year.
Yes,
Why isn't there a manager of the year?
Like that.
Look
also
at how we
commission of
just
the
came
year.
up with a great idea for only people in here. Wait, no, we're broadcasting too, so a lot of people can hear us.
Yeah,
We need a manager of the
like
year.
about 16,000 people can listen to us right now.
Something like that.
17,813 viewers right now. Shout out to everyone on Twitch. And shout out to our live audience. You are being an amazing audience. Can we just have an applause for the audience here?
They're partying down there. There's actually a lot of partying going on. I'm a little jealous. No, but we need a manager of the year, and if I was giving my unofficial reward, not just because he brought me a bottle of cognac from Armenia, it would go to Artak Manukyan.
But anyway.
But no, it did have something to do with it, actually. All right. Well, Akobian is taking on Samvel Tursahakian, and here we have a symmetrical semi-Slav, an exchange Slav. These positions can have a lot more bite than they look. Not nearly as boring as the exchange French, everybody. Don't worry, right? It's not nearly as boring or, but here, okay, you see the queen coming to b3, which is a principled idea whenever black has developed the light square bishop early, because you've got these really potentially dangerous tactics if you're not careful. But black is going to be aggressive to defend it, and regardless of the structure we get, it's good to be aware that there are a lot more tactics in these positions than first meet the eye, and it's got a little more bite. Now you've even got interesting moments where if that knight stays on a5, there could be weird tactics on c7. So this is an interesting one, even though it's almost a French-like structure. It's interesting. No,
almost, yeah. I like these type of positions.
Yeah. All right, well, the next game underway, Gregorian versus Forrest Chen. As we said, at this point he's drawn 2 games, so he figured he might have just turned around and keep on drawing. That's what Forrest is going to do here.
Or even win. I think he should have a lot of confidence by this point.
Yep.
He has drawn 2 of the best players of the Eagles. The 2 remaining players, his opponents, well, Gregorian is also a strong grandmaster, but maybe now Forrest Chen can think, okay, this guy is weaker actually than the first 2.
This guy's weaker than the last 2 I just drew. Like, what's going on here, right? This is getting easier by the game. Shocking. All right, well, let's go back to the game we first started with, as this one is just getting going, but Forrest is playing fast and confidently, as you said he would. Yaroslav Zherobuk eventually... no, what happened here? So Manukyan took on e5 and then played h3. But again, part of that is the tactics we highlighted. We highlighted that h3 probably wasn't possible because of the tactics here, but you really want to get that bishop to e3. And so a concession made to take and then play h3. And yes, white is still doing okay here, but from evaluating the position based on how they're managing the time, you just feel like black is doing fine, and Manukyan is just, once again, kind of off to the wrong foot here.
I agree with you, and that's really something that is saddening, that the Manukyan manager superpowers that I was expecting, I really thought that he would do very well, and I still think that maybe that could be
his team's winning, so as a good manager would say, he'll go 0-4 any day if his team wins the match, right?
Actually, that's true. He's such a great manager that I'm sure that that's what he thinks.
Absolutely, and I think right now the biggest, if I was to highlight what I think the critical moments were so far, one of them would be that Gregorian actually didn't come up with that king and pawn ending victory last round that we analyzed. So if the Eagles hold on to win, it's bygones be bygones, right? Yeah. But if something else happens, then you're definitely going to look back at that game as one that got away.
That's true.
Okay, well, one that hasn't gotten away from us because it only just started is the last game we haven't touched on yet between Dariusz Svirs and Zavin Andreasyan. Another early queen move to take advantage of an early developed light square bishop. But this one's not going to be quite the same. Here we're probably going to get the queens off the board very early, and Anna's going to be once again happy with an endgame.
I'm so happy. Let's start analyzing and let's start enjoying the game now that the queens are off of the board.
Right. Well, I want to enjoy some emotes. Come on, everybody, give me some eagle emotes.
Which ones do you like the most?
Of all the emotes, you have to like the turtles emote the best. It's just so cute.
But they have just lost.
I mean, I know. I'm gonna spam the turtles emote anyway, despite the fact that they lost. That's how much I love that
Tomorrow
emote.
they will play again. Don't worry, guys. Those of you who are fans of the turtles, they will be back playing for the 3rd place. So it's not over for the turtles.
That's right, and you will have the call of that match with Grandmaster Robert Hess tomorrow morning. So tune in for the consolation match and give me some emotes of the Eagles or the Bishops. I'm actually just curious who you're rooting for. I want to take a little stock measurement of the fans in the chat. So
show some love to the team that you're rooting for, Eagles
Chessbait's
or
going Panda.
Archbishops.
Did Chessbait trade sides? I thought Chessbait was rooting for the Turtles.
Oh, I see some of my emotes. Thank you.
Yep. All right. Well, all right. So we got G5. Awkward stuff. Both queens kind of staring at each other. Neither side wanting to blink. So we see the action on the king side developing. But here is a game where both sides are playing fast, as these two guys know theory well. And you see one of the things that Hikaru talked about in regards to the struggles that Armenia would have as this match goes on paper. Go ahead and take a look at the board 2 for the Archbishops. You see the rating there, everybody, 26-38 versus the board 1 of the Eagles, and you can see that the board 2 outrates the Eagles board 1. And so, yes, they're up a game right now in the standings, but don't go anywhere. I think we're going to be in for a really close match here, one that comes down to the wire, because you could argue that psychologically and as far as who's winning the match right now, it might be the Bishops due to the performance of Forrest Chen on board 4. So we'll see if the Eagles can stay strong in this round. Where to next? Cruel Yara. Yaroslav Zherobuk, Artak Manukyan throwing down. This is getting a little wild. Manukyan is extending, pushing pawns.
So after e5, he has taken on e5. The position where we were looking at bishop e3.
Yep. Yeah, we looked at that. He took on e5, and then he played h3.
Oh, yeah, just to recap.
And then now he's got a big center. The problem with the center, everybody, is it kind of looks a little cuter than it actually is, because you can't ever push f5 without the dark squares becoming problems. e5 is just non-existent. And so right now black is lacking space, but this e-pawn is a target on the file, and I'm not really sure I believe in white's attacking chances. That said, I'm looking at the position, and I don't see any natural developing moves for black, actually, because I don't want to play b6 and allow e5 with a discovery.
Oh, that's horrible.
Right. I can't play c6 at all because d6 is falling. So I'm trying to think, okay, I do feel a little bit skeptical of the space here, as I've said, but I don't see any immediate moves for black, unless you just come right back with the knight to f6 and try to hit the e4 pawn. Maybe then there's e5 and this pawn is overworked. You can't take without the knight falling.
I started to like Manukyan's position.
Yeah. No, it's tough. I'm not exactly sure. Oh, wait, the game is coming back right now. I'm not sure if they played e5 or not. Looks like our connection is actually wavering here with Chess.com. Perhaps there's...
we have an interview ready.
We do have an interview, so let's jump over to women's FIDE master Alexandra Botez as we figure out what's going on with our connection here with a lot in-house at the Foundry. So, all right, Alexandra, to you.
I'm here with WGM Jen Shahade. She's also a professional poker player and a writer. Jen, how do you feel about the event so far?
Oh my God, this is just fantastic. It's so wonderful to see chess presented in this way. And when I first stepped in here this morning, I was freaked out because I was like, oh my God, can I talk? I'm not going to be disrupting people, but now it's so much fun to see the chess right here and also be able to talk about the positions. I'm loving it. And this match is absolutely epic. I think it's going to go down to the wire between the Eagles and the St. Louis Archbishops. Really thrilling.
From the games you're seeing so far, which one do you find the most interesting?
Well, I talked to Zherobuk right before the match started today, and he told me that he was going to play classical openings because he's listening to classical music with his noise-canceling headphones. But this game doesn't seem like he delivered on his promise, because this is really modern, and I think it actually started out as a modern defense, and huge battle of ideas with Manukyan with that like huge kingside attack, and I really like Zherobuk's piece position and the potential counterplay against the center. I gotta say I like black, but I'm really excited to see how this game develops.
Are you cheering for any team in particular? I know you do a lot of commentary in St. Louis, so is there some bias there?
Oh yeah, there's definitely a little bit of bias. The St. Louis Archbishops, I spend probably 2 or 3 months of the year in St. Louis, which is the capital of chess in America. But at the same time, I'm from Philadelphia, so you know we kind of love the Eagles as well. And I love that the Eagles brought presents for a lot of the commentators and my brother Greg. We had a good laugh about the fact that they got him a bottle of cognac with his picture on it. Since Greg has never had a sip of alcohol, I'm going to have to get that cognac.
This event is huge for chess streaming in general. I know you do a lot of commentary, but do you have any plans starting your own Twitch chess stream? Fans in the chat right now, if you want to see Jen, make sure to comment it, and I'll show her it right after.
Yeah, I don't know. You guys are convincing me. This is a pretty spectacular event. I think I'll be doing some streaming in the future. I do some commentary for Chess.com during the Pro Chess League, and so it was a pleasure to kind of watch this all unfold. And it's so much fun to stream. It's so much fun to be here in San Francisco and see this esports event. Who's your pick, the Eagles or the Bishops?
I'm unbiased. I'm just doing interviews, so I'm a fan of both. Thank you, Jen. To you guys in the booth.
All right, well, we are here waiting for the next move. Manukyan ended up facing b6, so we were talking about how this shouldn't have been a possible move because of e5, Anna, but it is. He's laughing in the face of a discovered attack. If e5 is played, I guess one of the major points is that rook to b8, the pawn is pinned.
Or bishop
right?
to b7. I just realized that he has bishop b7 as a possibility.
Right, or, I mean, but either way, I think that e5 would actually be more likely to backfire, right? Because in this situation, the bishop would be pinned. So it's still a scenario where white just has to be super nervous about overextending the center. But wait a second. Are we heading back to CE5? Not sure yet. Right now we're actually having small internet issues, and part of it is because the crowd here has gotten a lot bigger, everybody. There's a lot of people on the internet, and we're going to have to stabilize our situation. Luckily, it's not Chess.com right now, so we can see as soon as we get pulled back, the moves are already made. And here we see that neither did Manukyan play e5, Anna, and Yaro immediately placed the move bishop a6, hitting the rook on f1. So I'm still really liking Yaro's position, still feeling like Manukyan did not get the best out of this opening, and especially now that there's been no tactical consequences to b6, and black no longer has development issues, I'm liking black's chances more and more.
I agree with you. I did like white's position, but I also thought that b6 was not possible. Since black could develop the light squared bishop, now he should be doing very well, putting a lot of pressure on the e4 pawn. Still, it's more space for white, but that more space means more weaknesses, more targets for black. Also,
especially the e4 pawn,
Yaro has declined a draw a few moves ago. So Manukyan offered a draw, and when your opponent declines a draw, psychologically, that's not a good feeling.
Well, I'm actually surprised that Manukyan would offer a draw. It tells me that he thought he was better for some reason, and he's not really better.
Yes.
And maybe thinking, I think Manukyan, being aggressive, just wanted to attack, so he thinks he's better. Maybe he thinks Yaro says the same and gets nervous. But I don't know that white is even better, simply evaluating his space advantage perhaps to be better than it actually is. But speaking of things being better than they actually are, you were really excited about the endgame happening, but it didn't happen. So the queens are still on the board. It's not as good as you hoped.
How did that happen? How could they not trade queens?
I don't know, but I'm super excited about it because now we have games with all the ladies on the board, full potential of an attack with the queens on the board. But no, jokes aside, the way that this went down here is the fact that after the move, bishop, let's see what happens. Oh, no, this is not the one where the queens could have been traded. It was the other game. Here we had the semi-Slav that... Okay, getting back. So, in the final position here, everybody, I think what we're probably going to do right now is switch our internet connection to a more stable one, since all of you fans showing up have slowed down the connection we were on. Good for you. Way to go, fans. Way to show up here and in strong forces, any of you. I don't even know if anybody can hear me right now. I'm just talking.
19,000 people watching right now on Twitch.
Okay.
Amazing shout out once again to everyone joining us online or on site for the first ever chess esports event happening right now in San Francisco at the Folsom Street Foundry. Amazing venue. I spent the previous match among the viewers, among our amazing audience here in the Foundry, and I could witness that this is still such a new thing that the spectators love it, but they are still afraid of talking. So since the players are wearing headphones, you could shout, you could scream, and you are not bothering the players.
Right.
But we chess players are so used to being quiet in playing venues that here I think that's the only thing that's missing. Guys, make some noise!
Yeah, everybody's allowed to be louder than they are, and Okay, oh, there's a couple loud people down there. That's cool. But you know what? Chess is an easy game to observe without going too nuts, and that's okay, too. All right, we're back. We're stable. We got all 4 games still rolling forward. Of all the boards there, the one we haven't looked at very much is the one here between Akobian and Tersahakian. So here we have a strange stone wall. Again, I don't really think that Akobian has got the best position here as white. I think black establishing the knight on e4 and safely supporting it feels pretty good. And, okay, the question here, everybody, usually white doesn't want to deal with this knight on e4 by taking it. White wants to retreat the knight from the f3 square and eventually play f3 himself, and even eventually e4. That's a common idea, to change the structure and eventually try to open up light square diagonals toward the king side. So we're going to see that. We're going to see Akobian probably try for an idea like that. He played his last move, rook fc1, to kind of overprotect the knight against coming tactics. But look for Akobian to play a move like knight d2 or knight e1 next and try to right the ship over here on the king side with f3. So we'll see what Tersahakian plays in the meantime. All these games are still honestly pretty close. So we could see a whole bunch of mutual time pressure, Anna.
I think we will witness that. And the match is very close. As you have called it, we will not see this match being decided in round 3. And not until the last, maybe 2 games, or the last 1 game of round 4. The two teams have brought their best players, and we are seeing Forrest Chen, board 4 of the St. Louis Archbishops, performing excellently. He has drawn 2 of the best players of the Armenia Eagles. If Manukyan can do the same, then the Eagles will definitely win the match. If Manukyan loses all his games, then I think the Archbishops can make a comeback.
Yeah, well, at this point, I think that the Archbishops are looking forward to the GM on GM battles as they get closer. We're going to keep an eye on the big one going on right here between board 2 of the Archbishops, who's actually higher rated than board 1 for the Eagles. But checking back in on Forrest Chen, as we've said, he's sort of been the hero of the day for the Archbishops. He's been worse in all 3 games, though, and I think black is, again, a little bit worse here against Gregorian. White has really established a space advantage on the queen side. You look at the knight and bishop having a party over here on c6, and you can't really rid yourself of that weakness without more problems happening. Forrest played bishop f6. Maybe he's going to trade, but we've seen him down and out before and do just fine. What are your evaluations of his chances here?
I'm afraid of his position. I think he's doing very well, and I want him to do well in the remaining 2 games as well, but I'm a little scared of these type of positions for black. It's less space, and the c6 backward pawn is a weakness. Now after c4, white is aiming to open the c5, and he is opening the c5. There's just no way that the c5 will remain
Okay, he takes on e5. I'm wondering, can white take on d5 here? Sometimes you play a move like take c5, and it's very easy in chess to take a piece and assume that the capture right back is what's about to happen, right? And you just assume that there'll be a trade. Usually a capture has to be met by a recapture. But in this case, there's an intermezzo, possibly, where white takes on d5 instead. And if black takes on d4, white can actually take on c6. The risk is that there's a tactic with bishop takes f2, and then rook takes d2. So quite possibly it's just not worth it to risk, but this is a super dangerous situation with white getting so many pawns on the queen side. I'm wondering if it's actually an idea that black might have to deal with. But okay. We will see. Gregorian calculating. Most likely he simply captures back on e5, but that was an interesting one to look at nonetheless. And this situation is one where both kings are in danger, although Andreasen fixing his problem currently with the king on g7 starts to make me like his position even better. He's going to play the other rook to h8 and just keep his pressure. Yeah, he plays it instantly. This is looking kind of dangerous for white. How do we deal with the second rank here if you're Swears?
Well, it's so difficult. He cannot bring his rook to h1. He's going to take a couple of moves to try to challenge this rook on h2. So I really like his chances. The only issue is that he has got less space. And less space means that it's less easy to move around with your pieces. He would need to bring the rest of his army and bring in the queen as well, some of the minor pieces, in order to attack the white king.
Yeah, it's makes you wonder if he has to come up with some idea to just be purely in the defensive mode of playing a move like rook f1 and then king e1 and maybe rook f2, trying to offer some sort of trade to eliminate the pressure by black. But if he does that, as we said, the a file falls under Black's control in some of these positions where, okay, not right away the c6 pawn is falling, but the idea is that Black is sort of playing on both sides of the board here. You've got pressure on the h-file, the potential of pressure on the a-file, and Schwierz is definitely under more pressure. And as Hikaru Nakamura said when he was with us in the first round, Andreasen is a Blatz, not Blatz. Blatz is a great word, though, combining rapid and blitz. Yeah, way to go. There's a tongue, a slip of the tongue there. So we've got a rapid and blitz specialist, Zavin Andreasen, and here he's really showing and flexing those muscles as he's just got a huge edge on the clock.
I wonder if he will actually manage to bring his pieces, because I love the rook on h2, but now I'm looking at options, and I don't see a clear way for Black to actually progress in this position.
Okay, well we've seen the move Queen B1 played. What's a way to progress? What if we take on e5 and bring the knight in? I know that doing so immediately is not. I'm sort of bluffing at the idea that I'm taking this pawn because I don't really want to open up the pin. But if I have all the time in the world, I'll play King G8 or to the h-file and eventually relocate the bishop here. So there's some potential danger for White that White would have to deal with on e5, and I just think that being tied down on the second rank is really huge. Maybe he's threatening Queen G1. That was the idea of Queen B1. Kick the rook out,
yes.
Perhaps. Okay. Well, we'll come back to this one. It's not the game that has progressed the furthest. There's one other game that might be under time pressure before any others, and let's check out the game between Manukyan and Zarabuk. The board for Armenia. He's holding his own. I mean, is that not a very nice thing to say? It's not as bad as I thought it would be. That's a nice thing to say, I think.
I think it is, because we were a little worried, shall I say? We were worried about his position because we really root for him. We are really a fan of Mr. Manukyan after all the gifts he has given to us.
And now
he's
maybe
a very nice person.
He's got h4 and h5, or even h4 and f5. The issue is, okay, Black is going to be bringing the knights to the queen side. There's already threats like knight to c4, but with the dark squared bishops gone and already establishing the potential of an attack over here, look for h4, h5. Okay, there's crazy ideas where this rook comes into e7 and the attack really gets nuts. So perhaps Manukyan has more of an attack here than we thought he would. Okay, rook e7 right away. This is a risky move. Note, everybody, that there is no idea of something like this to cut off the queen's protection of the rook because, well, the pawn on f7 is pinned, so that would be a problem. But
the same idea with the knight on e5 would work, so I'm looking at moves like knight
d7
to c4.
Or knight c. Okay, here he just plays king back. He's just going to kick the rook out.
Also makes sense, of course.
Another reason why I'm not sure I really like the move rook e7. I feel like playing h4 first to bring in more attackers was a little bit more of what the doctor ordered. Now he sort of feels like we have the same position we just had a couple moves ago, but Black is a little safer than he was. A tempo ahead on the queen side, and the king no longer being on this open diagonal here.
He was trying to bring the queen to d4, aiming at the h8 square, which would be a beautiful mate.
Yep.
Even if Black doesn't blunder it, I think it's a good idea. The queen will be very well placed on d4. Centralize your queen.
Always.
And that long diagonal without the g7 bishop is very weak.
Yeah, he's going to play queen d4, I think. Yeah, here he goes, king g8, and now here comes either f5 or h4, h5. We'll see how frisky Manukyan's feeling here. I think f5 is actually totally playable. Again, you don't really like f5 in any long-term positional sense because it opens up b5. But we have what happened? What happened?
I think it's another draw
for Forrest Chen,
what
in the world is going on? What is going on with Forrest Chen? Somebody check the water. Okay, as I said, he's already drawn two. He might as well just keep on drawing. Forrest is he's running right now.
Oh, he might just win in the last round against Mr. Manukyan.
I don't know. At this point, I think if you asked him coming in if 4 draws would be considered a success, he'd have to say yes. He's drawn 3 Grand Masters today.
Amazing.
The free agent acquisition by St. Louis Archbishops manager Mike Kummer really, really paying dividends here. So we left the position with the trade on e5. Of course, taking e5 happened. We didn't take on d5 because of that line we gave. But how did this game quickly become a draw? b4, rook b6. he was able to establish full coordination with his queen, and after the move bishop to d3, queen takes d6, likely white just felt that this position had sort of slipped away, Anna, because actually I think if we were evaluating the position, I think Forrest was much better here.
He is.
The a6 pawn is a huge target, b4 is weak, d4 is weak. So after rook e to a1, black played rook d8, and
he offered a draw, or Gregorian offered a draw without making a move?
Gregorian offered a draw, and Forrest Chen took it. So he just must not have been happy about his position. I mean, black can play bishop to b5. You can move this knight around to a square like f5. And how is black not just going to start gobbling up pawns here?
Oh, this is a really nice position
Yeah,
for
I mean,
black.
so again, it's still a successful result for Forrest for sure.
Yeah.
But if anybody could have won this game, it was actually the young Chen.
Yes, maybe he should have played on.
Maybe he should have played on. Well, I mean, it's hard to begrudge him at this point. He's doing what he was hired to do, which is get draws against grandmasters as board 4. So, again, congratulations there. The bishops remain a point behind in the standings, although, no, they are, yes, they are
a point still
a point behind. But, again, getting themselves really within good shape heading into the final round. So, we have what happened? Oh, my gosh.
The Zerabuk against Manukyan.
But again, this is not a huge surprise. Okay, so Zerabuk, after the move knight e4 was played by Manukyan, which I really didn't like. Knight e4 heading into f6, but allowing his best, most dangerous piece to be traded. Why not f5? Or why not h4, h5? h4, h5, h6.
That makes a lot of sense.
What was the threat for black?
Maybe he was afraid of queen g4.
Okay, queen g4. Okay, yeah, no, that actually makes a lot of sense. that's what the problem was. Okay, so that's why no h4.
It's not so easy, but it doesn't look like a position that
still comes back to maybe then f5 should have been played. I just don't believe that trading off pieces can help white's effort here, can help white's chances. When he trades off the knight, it just means that black has almost nothing to worry about as far as an attack goes.
Exactly. Just a pro tip from Danny and I, keep that knight if you want to attack the opponent's king. The f6 square was just perfect for the knight. Even if you couldn't bring the knight immediately to f6, certainly ideas with
you know
f5
what another
or
idea
h4,
was here?
h5.
What about king h2 with the idea of bishop f3, bishop g4?
I like it.
So
Anything
that h3 doesn't fall, right? Now you also have h4, h5 coming. So it just seems that in many ways white had a potentially better position here than what actually happened on the board. Knight e4 is just counterintuitive to what the position needs. And unfortunately for Manukyan, it meant that he was just in a position where the queen and knight are very dominant here. This is exactly where they just will outplay a bishop that is, just block behind a wall of pawns. And okay, should the game have ended that soon? Absolutely not. But
he must have blundered something.
Well, no, he was under time pressure. He lost on time.
Oh, he lost on time.
Yeah, and
That's
with that,
painful.
But okay, the bishops needed that. They bring it to a 5-5 tie. The game's still going. That will decide who has a lead heading into the final round for the chance to join the Pandas in the championship tomorrow. Are the ones between Akobian and Tersahakian. Here we have the queen and knight duo but in this case for the Eagles, I believe that's got to favor Tersahakian here a little bit against Akobian. And the other one still going down is the board 1 versus board 2 matchup, where the board 2 is actually higher rated. And right now, actually looks to have turned things around a little bit, Anna. Look at this. Dariush Fierce has the A file. He's gotten rid of this rook on the second rank, and his pieces seem to be a little bit on the prowl. So I'm starting to like white's position here.
I do like it. What has happened?
We are wondering what has happened here. We've got 2 games left in the books with a tie here, a 5-5 tie, along with all nearly 20,000 viewers right now with us on Twitch TV, Chess.com TV, and all over the web. We're all wondering what's going to happen in this match as we head into the last round. Right now, looking like we might be tied 6-6 heading into the last round.
It could well be 6-6. Andreasen right now on the camera, top board of the Armenia Eagles. Very focused in this position, but it seems like something has gone wrong.
Yeah, although getting the pieces off the board got to make you feel a little better for Andreasen, just because the rook on the seventh rank, was so powerful. But all right, let's keep our eye on that and check back in the game between Akobian and Tersahakian. This is a game that should be a draw based on the fact that it's queen and pawn not a lot going on, not a ton of weaknesses for either side. But don't underestimate one plan by Black. Okay, so they just agreed to a draw. Why wasn't there an idea, as the fans cheer for them, why wasn't there an idea of queen to c4 and trying to activate the king to try to win the queen upon ending? The move it was white to play here, but the move I got to be considering if I'm Tersahakian, especially given the match standings, you're not going to get another chance at the board 1 for St. Louis. I really like this move, queen c4. Sometimes it threatens queen d3 because you would immediately maybe have a pawn to push. But a move like this, followed by activating the king, maybe had more winning chances for Black in this endgame than White had. So I'm a little surprised by the early draw.
I'm also surprised. I thought that Tersahakian could have played on, although he must have a lot of respect for Agobian.
All right.
And they also get on very well. Not that here they are friends.
Right.
I think the players are so professional that even though Agobian gets on very well with all the players from the Eagles, and he has helped them get here by getting an Uber for them with his credit card, he is obviously fighting for his team here. And I would have played on as Black. Agobian, I think, was okay to offer a draw since he's a higher rated player, and the position should be still okay for
Yeah, and it makes sense for him too because he's not in a position where he's the one playing for a win. So all right, well, it keeps the team match score locked in at 5.5, 5.5, and still though, based on the opportunities the Eagles have had, a missed win in the last round for Grigorian, and possibly some other games maybe, you're starting to get an ominous feeling that the Bishops are making a comeback here, especially given the way Forrest Chen has handled himself so far. But okay, we have a tied match with one game left here in round 3. E5 has just been played. I'm expecting that this game will also end peacefully this round, which would have our a round where 3 out of the 4 games were draws, but we'll see. Maybe one side comes up with something here before it's done.
Guys, those of you worrying about my microphone, it's just me because I was drinking water and then I forgot to put it back where it should be. So everything is all right with the volume, and I'm just not used to wearing a headphone.
There they are right there, Zavine Andreassian versus Dariush Fierce. And Andreassian currently in the think tank, trying to keep the tension, I think, as long as he can. Just from a practical perspective, when you have 3 minutes and your opponent has 30 seconds, there's no reason to just agree to a draw. See if you can come up with one final tricky plan, and if your opponent doesn't figure it out under time pressure, maybe you steal one. So what is that tricky plan, Anna? I kind of like e4.
I'm not sure about the tricky plan, but we have just hit 20,000 viewers on Twitch, so that deserves a shout-out from our live audience as well, and shout out to everyone online. This is the first ever chess eSport event happening right now in San Francisco, Folsom Foundry, and we couldn't be more excited.
The main issue with e4, just obviously everybody, is that takes. There's likely going to be a d5 check, but it looks like Black calculated. I liked it, and so did Andreasen. He goes for it, which is maybe a perfect move to play when your opponent didn't have time to calculate some sort of captures and discover check. Because now if you take on f3, Anna, g4 is a permanent problem. So will he play knight f6 first and try to kind of maintain the tension? No, he plays king f7. The truth is this should be a draw, right? I mean, I don't think either side really has a ton to play for, but again, with the time on the clock and your opponent having 10 seconds, he's just trying to find a way to make it hard for white. I would love to see some fireworks here before it's over in this round, but either way, we're headed in for a very close match.
It is so close.
In the final set of games. So, okay, knight d2 played. If Black could just put the bishop behind the pawn chain in a structure like this, everybody, it would be a totally different type of endgame, because a lot of White's pawns are targets on the dark squares, the same color of Black's bishop. So the issue here is really not that there aren't some potential targets, there's just no real access points. It's so locked up, there's not a lot of room for the pieces to get in, and you notice these guys are strong grandmasters. White's not going to capture here and give a new weakness, and Black doesn't want to take here and let the king just come forward aggressively. So the problem is, how many times can you dance around that tension, right? Eventually you got to cut it.
I know, but he will definitely try. As you mentioned, when your opponent is so low on time, you should try to do whatever you can. Try to pose some problems to your opponent. So even if the position is equal, even if it's a draw, you should still make your opponent fight for that half point. give him some opportunity to make a mistake.
I don't see the opportunities.
I know, I also don't see it, but I'm just trying to spill some wisdom.
Yep.
Pretend that I know what I'm talking about.
No, you do, and it's good advice for everybody anyway, because half the reason people tune into a chess show is to try to get better at the game. So, okay, well, eventually Black breaks. He takes, but still lacks access points, lacks a way in. I think at this point both players see the writing on the wall, and we're going to have likely a 6-6 tie just heading into the final round.
Oh, that e4 square? Well, what's going to happen after the offer? Oh, bishop to g3. Wow.
Which is a draw offer. Because with all the pieces traded on g3, there's no way in for anybody.
That's true. And the dark squared bishop of white was the worst piece on the board.
Yep. So, Spheres offering a draw the old-fashioned way, which is just to take all the pieces off the board. And I think that's what we're going to see. No. No.
What's happening?
Wait a second. No, did he just blunder this?
Our audience does not agree with the players.
They're right, though. I missed the fact that he could take and play knight c3. Bishop g3 was a straight-up blunder. Oh, my gosh. A huge turnaround here. If Andreasen can win this game for the Eagles, things are back in control for the team from Armenia. This is huge. So Bishop g3. What did they say? I missed it. Doesn't take a grandmaster to figure out it's a draw?
Whoa.
I don't know. I don't know, but you may be
Strong
wrong.
words from our audience.
Maybe grandmasters are about to win this game, because I'm not sure that Spheres is happy anymore that he played bishop g3. I completely missed this idea of taking g3 and knight c3.
So apparently the bishop was very bad on e1, but you needed that bishop not to lose the b4 pawn.
Yep. Okay, he can still trade. It's still a draw, I guess, if the knights come off the board, because neither side can really do anything with their passed pawn. Pawn on e5, pawn on b5. Andreasen taking his time. Okay, he's trying to come up with one last idea. That was a nice move b4, everybody, pointing out that white can't take on f4. Now these two passed pawns would be too much to handle. So, Spheres keeps the pieces on the board. But now the knight is stuck guarding the b pawn. This knight can maybe put pressure on the d4 pawn. It's still maybe not enough, though. Still not enough. They're trying.
Both players are so low on time that they've got to repeat a few moves.
Okay, they do eventually draw the game. Okay,
so repetition,
right.
6-6.
Well, our excited fan was right. It didn't take a grandmaster to figure out the draw. Or the question is, how many grandmasters does it take to figure out that it was a draw? Apparently, 2 of them. Eventually, they did, and we have a 6-6 tie heading into the final round of the semifinals today. It's Saturday. It is the semifinals of the Pro Chess League, and in just a few moments, we will be getting the final games of this semifinals and figure out who's going to join the Pandas in the championship, and that's going to happen right after this small break.
What a match this is being. Danny, what are your thoughts? One more round to go.
Well, it's what we thought we would get and hoped we would get. It is a super close match. We are tied 6-6 heading to the final round, but I don't think that this is how we thought we would get here, right?
Yeah.
We've seen just an incredible performance from board 4 of St. Louis Archbishops. There's no way that's not the story of the day, and one of the things that's just amazing about the team environment is that you have this young free agent recruited because they knew he was underrated, and it's just inspiring to all expert master level players to make a difference on this kind of stage. The second thing has been that it feels that the Armenia team, normally so good under time pressure and rapid and blitz, they've let a couple games get away. Gregorian failed to convert, potentially winning king and pawn ending. Zavin Andreassian dropped that draw. I think the other games that Forrest Chen drew, he really played well from start to finish. That first round game where Andreassian let it go, right? So I remember those two games, and it doesn't take anything away from St. Louis, but I think right now, heading in this last round, you're going to really need to make sure that if you're winning, you don't let those games get away, right? Because as a chess player, you can't always control if you get outplayed, but you always want to make sure that when you get a win, you don't give it up, right? And you convert on it, and I think whoever takes care of business, that's what's going to happen.
I think we have someone who knows a lot more about the behind the scenes and how Forrest Chen was recruited.
That's right.
Let's talk to him right now.
Let's do it right now. Alexandra, take it away.
I'm here with the manager of the St. Louis Archbishops, Mike Coomer. Mike, I've heard it's a lot more stressful to be a manager than a player. Would you agree with this?
Oh, no doubt about it, because when you're under the sidelines, you know, you can't really control much, but when you're playing, you know, you're just in the zone.
I saw a real recovery from, well, a small recovery from the St. Louis Archbishops this round. How do you feel about that?
Oh, yeah, I love it. This is exactly where we want to be, 6-6. We're favored in 3 out of the 4 matchups, and Armenia's getting tired.
In the first Pro Chess League, you were also managing the team. You had Fabiano. How did you pick the lineup for this year?
Yeah, we had a couple new additions, Fabiano Carianu and Vladimir Fortese from Russia, and of course, Forrest Chen anchoring board 4 and doing awesome.
Awesome. If you had to pick one of the players, who do you think would be the best manager?
The best manager? Don't take my job. Don't take my job.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough. How do you see the rest of the round unfolding?
Well, let's hope for the best, you know. It's in the players' hands now.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Back to you guys.
I might have to take back what I said that Hikaru Nakamura is the best interview in chess. Because that was a pretty exciting, pretty animated interview, and does he care about this or what?
I think this is his life right now.
Yep.
This moment, St. Louis Archbishops. What a manager! We need that title, best manager of the year.
That is a title being added with a cash prize next year. 100% Chess.com on the line. I'm already going to commit to. We've got to have a best manager of the year, and really, it's such an important part of what goes into this. The players have to execute now, as Mike said. The players will be coming back to the boards in just a moment. Let's pull up the score one more time and remind everybody who's with us what we're about to witness in the final round here. A 6-6 tie for the Armenia Eagles and the St. Louis Archbishops. We will also probably take this moment to talk a little bit about the tie-breaks format. We mentioned it earlier today in a match that didn't really come close to being a tie between the Cheongdu Pandas and the Ljubljana Turtles. But this match could very well send us into tiebreakers. And unlike the regular season, for those of you who followed it, where the higher seed would move on automatically, that's not going to happen today. We are going to have the most exciting format for a tiebreaker in chess we could think of. It starts with board 4 for each team facing off. The player who wins that game will move on to the next round. If the game is a draw, Anna, both players are eliminated. So don't draw. Now you kill both you and the other team, right?
Yes.
Or try to draw if you're losing, right? A team wins when eventually the other team's board 1 is eliminated. So if your board 2 can eliminate that board 1 by either win or draw, then your team wins. If it comes down to board 1 versus board 1 action, they will play until someone wins over and over again. I don't care if we have to be here until tomorrow.
I would love to be here until tomorrow. And thank you so much, Danny, for adjusting my microphone.
And so there we have it, everybody. We see the tiebreaker That's the format. That's what's going to go down. It is currently tied 6-6, so we might be bringing that slide up one more time before all is said and done today. We'll see. There we have the last round matchup, which will bring board 1 versus board 1, board 2 versus board 2, and on down the line. If you look at those matchups, it's similar to what Hikaru said. It's similar to what Mike Kummer just said, right? Which is that St. Louis is favored on 3 out of the 4 boards. And you could make an argument they're favored on the last board based on the way Forrest Chen has played today. I'm pretty sure he has a higher performance rating than some of those GMs on his team right now with the 3 draws he's pulled. So
that is so true.
Yeah, pretty amazing stuff. But I think that regardless of how they got here and regardless of some of the missed opportunities Armenia might feel they had, right now is the time to just focus on the last round, and sure enough, they have a great chance to win. Andreassian and Tersahakian are both known as rapid and blitz specialists, and Gregorian's had a good day as well. So, Anna, who do you got? I haven't asked you who you think is going to win the match. It's tied 6-6. Go on record here. Who's going to win?
Oh, my God. On record for 20,000 people watching online and our live audience here at the Foundry, well, I think the Eagles will win. But
you think the Eagles will win?
Somehow. I have this
feeling. In tie-break format?
Maybe.
Maybe
I would love to see tie-breaks.
I would love to see a tiebreaker. That would make the fans go nuts. I mean, I don't want the players to do anything they don't want to do, but I'd be open to a tiebreaker. That'd be cool.
So are you just suggesting that they should all draw their games?
If everyone just wants to take a draw, I'm totally cool with that. No, I'm kidding. But if it happens through hard-fought chess, we're always interested in that. I don't know who I think is going to take this one. There we have it. Board 4 versus board 4.
And look at the flags. It's the United States against Armenia.
That's right. We have the manager of the Armenia Eagles, Artak Manukyan, one of the best performing board 4s all year. Today, he's 0-3, but facing off across from him is a young man who's also the board 4, but having the opposite day. He has 1.5 out of 3, but hasn't lost all day. Really has an undefeated score right now, getting 3 draws against 3 GMs. And they are actually off. You see them making their first moves right now. Forrest Chen has played the move D4. Black has played Knight F6. But these 2 guys are super focused. They know what's on the line, and they're playing for as much as any Grandmaster ever does. And this is they got to be nervous. Going to be fun.
This is a key moment from Manukyan, who has lost all his games. 3 losses, but this round counts as double. He's playing against the weakest chain.
The weakest,
supposed
like
to be
Dr.
chain.
Evil Fingers, right?
Exactly.
The weakest player, quotation fingers. Forrest Chen has not been the weakest player today. So, all right, but this could be exciting. I want to get a D5, B5. That would be right up my alley, a Blumenfeld gambit, and we'll see if we get it. Okay, D5. It's either going to be a capture on D5 here, everybody, and a Benoni, or Black is going to play B5 right here, right now. And
I'm expecting a capture and a normal Benoni.
You're expecting a normal Benoni?
Yes, Manukyan is quite a classical guy. He said that he likes positional, strategical
Indeed, you're
plans.
right. The only issue is we all know the Benoni is baloney. It's not a very good opening. That's the problem. And Artak has actually, if I had to just give a totally the chess coach in me opinion, I would say the biggest problem in his games today has actually been his opening repertoire. Yeah. He's been worse out of the first stage from what I can remember in almost every game. And as a player who plays a very high level of chess, I mean, it's okay. Benoni, baloney aside, I know there's some players downstairs that would call me out for calling it the baloney, but I don't care. I think I think we'll see how well Forrest is prepared against the Benoni and what his system is.
I'm just surprised that Manukyan is taking his time.
Yeah.
To make
well, I mean,
this
G6
move.
is the main move here, everybody. Is he going for some sort of... No, he plays A6. Okay. E4 will come now for white. Likely. No, A4 first, yeah, to prevent B5. And E4 will come at some point here, but Forrest Chen likes the bishop on F4. We saw him do this in the round 1 game against Zavin Andreassian, and maybe because he knows it's an idea in the Benoni, he was almost confusing the lines. I think it was less natural there. Here, in a Benoni structure, again, the bishop is just trying to eye out this D6 weakness. But even here, it's kind of a weird move, honestly.
It is. And Manukyan, once again, taking longer than what he should. Normally, when you know the opening, you just blitz out the first moves.
Yep.
I'm just
Forrest Chen feels like he
worried.
knows the opening there. He's taking a look around.
He is very comfortable.
Little
looking at
back
the rest.
stretching makes sense.
Yeah, and also they can see the rest of the board. So when he's looking up, he's looking at the projector, and he wants to know how his opponent, how his
Teammates are doing,
not
and they haven't
opponents,
started
teammates.
yet.
They haven't started, but he doesn't know it. So he looks up sometimes to see if his teammates are already playing.
Yeah, and
last
honestly,
game.
I think 98-5 is fine for black. This is just a weird development. It's one of those things where the bishop thinks it's on a really nice square because the d6 pawn is potentially weak. But in a lot of these King's Indian structures here, the bishop is just always a target to tactics like knight h5. And I'm not a Benoni specialist for white. Maybe this is some sort of sideline, but I just instantly feel like it's a slightly dubious position. If the bishop goes to g5, black is probably happy to just play bishop e7. And the trade of the dark square bishops is really not that bad for black, given that black normally has less space in a Benoni, everybody. So getting those pieces off the board, putting the queen on this file, totally fine. And you're not going to see the dark squares become a huge problem for black, given that white has also lost his dark square bishop. So, you know, Forrest Chen has played really well today, but we've also highlighted that the one game that he was really losing, where we were initially making our first run Forrest run jokes, you're welcome, was the game versus Andreassian, where it's a similar idea that I didn't like. And yeah, I think bishop e7 is fine here for black.
Let's see if Artak is going for bishop e7. It's funny in this position because you would think that that bishop belongs on g7, and also after pushing g6 you have weakened the dark squares. So I think it's not an easy move to make in general to get rid of that bishop.
No, but I think it makes the most positional sense to just play bishop e7, not lose any other tempos or weaken any other squares potentially on this side of the board. The dark square bishops coming off the board is totally fine for black. It doesn't make the d6 pawn any weaker, and I don't think white's in a position for this to be an attack. And I like that move. I like the way Manoukian has played the position, and we will check back in on it. We have another game underway, the battle of board threes, Yaroslav Zerobuk versus Karin Grigorian, and we have another Pierce. We've had a few of these in this matchup.
We have a couple of them. Even when the game started out as an Aljochin,
yeah.
Then they went for
and
a
then
Pierce.
even when the game started out with a d4 opening, we had a position that was sort of similar to it. So really unique and more offbeat openings than the ones we saw earlier today between the Shangdu Pandas and the Loboyana Turtles.
Almost, Danny.
Almost.
You're trying so hard.
I'm trying so hard. It just doesn't come natural for me. To put a,
it's okay. You've been commentating the whole day.
I have been commentating the whole day. All right. Well, this game will be okay. We have a classical Pierce now, h3. We've seen Grigorian play these early knight c6 lines, and notice that Yaro is sort of taking a prophylactic approach against that slightly unorthodox system, playing h3 to prevent bishop g4. The reason that makes sense, everybody, is because if black gets knight c4, then bishop g4 is more of an idea. You want to trade off this knight, and it just increases your control over the dark squares. So h3 stops both knight g4, it stops bishop g4. Now the bishop can come to e3 because there's no threat here. So will Grigorian just kind of commit to a traditional Pierce idea, something like c6, or will he come up with something a little trickier? We're going to find out really soon. Look at this game. Wow, bishop h6 is played. And one thing that's interesting is bishop f8 an idea? And would we actually get an early draw? I doubt it.
I don't think that they would actually go. Bishop f8, of course, is a perfectly possible move in this position. Actually, you need to go for something against the h6 bishop if you want to castle. You don't want to keep your king in the middle of the board. So bishop f8 is one of the clear candidates in this position. But I don't think that they will actually repeat moves. It's Forrest Chen who should be playing on.
Yeah, absolutely. But the thing is, maybe he considers it his role to just sort of hold par, right, on the team. And the coming in, we talked about the fact that in this last round, St. Louis rates Armenia on 3 of the 4 boards. The only board they don't is technically this one right here. So, I think that Forrest basically will take what the game gives him. And as he said in his interview, not a ton of expectations on him, and he's overperformed them already. So if he can sort of hold serve, he'll probably be happy. So
we are being told that bishop f4 is the main line in that position.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't we do this
We are
last
also
time?
learning.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Is it really?
I don't know, but I just believe everything that's being told in the chat.
I also
I'm that
believe
kind of a person.
I believe everything that Twitch chat says too.
Shout out once again to everyone watching on Twitch right now. We are just so proud of you guys. 21,444 viewers at the moment. This is the first ever Chess Esports live event in San Francisco, and we have 4 amazing teams competing for a cash prize of $20,000.
And more than that, really, for the second and third and fourth place prizes as well. But all right, Bishop of Fate
I meant
played.
the first prize is
yeah,
20,000.
first prize. That's
Sorry,
right. Yeah.
I didn't mean that's the prize fund. Of
Yep.
course, the prize fund is a lot bigger, and the pride fund is also a lot bigger.
Really, I don't know where I would value my pride though. Probably somewhere around like $1.50. That would be where I'd put it. But all right,
see
so
that dance
Bishop
and
of
some
Fate,
of your
Queen D2.
Disney
Well,
singing.
apparently I don't know anything about the Benoni, and I'm pretty excited about that. Pawn Islands. Why is Danny so down on Bishop of 4? Well, at least you got a comment just read on air, so that's cool. All right, let's check in on the other game that has just started between the board 2s, Samvelter Sahakian and Darius Spheres. Here we have our first traditional E4, E5 game of the day. Is that really true? I don't remember a lot of others.
Could be. It could be. I also can't recall any other.
This is
actually.
a
How
mainline
surprising.
Rui Lopez turned into a declined Berlin, so to speak, when you get knight f6. White plays 4d3 and just says no. Not going to go into the main lines of the Berlin. Black now plays bishop c5, and we have a very traditional Spanish structure, flexible position where white has played for early d3, c3, and e4, so you're not getting the most mainline Spanishes, but eventually white will still try to prepare some sort of break in the center. So, but I'm trying to think. We had several e4 games, but we've had so many Petrovs. We've had Aljohan's defense. We've had Pierce. I don't remember a single e5, and so this should be fun there.
Yeah.
Mixing it up a little bit heading into the last round, and we like that.
We even had some French defenses. Incredible.
Yeah, I'm really going to be curious to follow this one closely. And the truth is that we have Forrest playing very fast here and already with a 4-minute advantage on the clock. So,
Darius Schwirch on the camera. Shall we check his game?
yeah, we can do that. Yeah, well, we were just here talking about the fact that this is the first E4, E5 one that we've had, but not a lot going on in this one just yet. The game between Gregorian and Zarabuk. Well, again, we had this knight to c6 line. We were just talking about whether he would prefer this knight c6 variation. He goes for it. Oops. Knight c6, bishop b5. We have bishop d7, a6, takes and takes. And Zarabuk is just simplifying the position at this point. Not going for a ton of craziness. He's already taken off 2 sets of minor pieces. But white has a little bit of an edge. Good control over the center. Options, I would say, to both castle long or short here, but I think castle short and trying to just continue to use the coming open files in the center makes a lot of sense for white.
What I can see from these games and how they started is that the players are being extremely cautious. This is a situation when any half point going in one direction or the other can decide the entire match. So they are being very careful about what they are doing. They are not taking much risk, and they just want to see what's happening on the rest of the boards.
Yeah, I agree totally. And I don't know if that's going to pay off or backfire, right? Because although Hikaru said in the last one that sometimes the match situation suggests that you have to play more aggressive or take more risk, I think Hikaru, of all the top grandmasters in the world, is as prepared and has had as much practice adjusting his strategy based on a tournament situation, because he grew up in the U.S., in the American circuit, the Swiss system, where you had to learn how to fight for first by beating people that in tournament formats, you know, a different, slower style or around robin, it's usually okay to take a draw, right? And I think Hikaru is right about that, right? Adjusting the way you're playing the position based on the fact that you have to win. He was critical of the Turtles maybe not being more aggressive earlier. We'll see if these guys adjusting the strategy, playing very solid, is something that gets them in positions they're not happy with.
Yeah, we shall see that. I'm curious to see, and I also want to see how it will unfold. Imagine one of the games start to go in one way, like somebody starts to have an advantage. So the teammates of the player who is getting into trouble will have to start taking risks.
Yep. Yeah, at this point, you literally have everything to play for, and if the match ends in a tie, of course, at the very least, we get to see what a tiebreak would look like, right?
I want to see
but
this so much.
You can't ever rely on a tie, right? Every player wants to win to prevent their team from being put in that super scary position. I still can't wait to see what happens in this Benoni. Queen E7 now being played, awkwardness all over the board, all kinds of fun. The game we were on right now, as we mentioned, Zavine Andreassian and Varakobian, the board one's facing off. This is a King's Indian attack. And maybe not going to be one of the sharpest ones, not the most mainline King's Indian attack where you get black castled, but really all out on the queen side while white tries to checkmate him. I don't know that that's going to be the exact kind of King's Indian attack we're going to see here. I think that it may happen, but I think that black could even castle long, and we'll see how this one goes. Trying to keep an eye on the most exciting games. I feel like we're like the calm before the storm.
Yeah, it is. Just a few minutes before it begins. What's happening on board 4?
On board 4, we're
Forrest Chen.
His
handle is one of the...
This is really the most exciting game.
I know, and he did this handle, a murder castle.
Uh-huh.
That's just crazy.
That's honest. It's a little...
It says it all.
It's a little violent, honestly. You know? All right, well, we have Queen F8. And we're going to see how Forrest Chen handles it. I don't think he's going to want the endgame, but...
I'm pretty sure he will not exchange queens.
I'm pretty sure he will not exchange queens, but what we will do is go to Women's FIDE Master Alexandra Botez while we're still in the opening stage, get another interview in here. She is standing by with a grandmaster who knows a thing or two about playing online chess. Alex, up to you.
Thanks. I'm here with Grandmaster Alejandro Ramirez. He played several games for the St. Louis Archbishops this season. He's here as a coach of Darius and Yaroslav. He's also the coach of St. Louis University. Are you proud of your students so far?
Well, I'm very proud that they made it this far, especially Yaro has had a tremendous season. Yeah, he started 0 out of 2 today, but I think he is in time to have some composure back, and hopefully he ends in 2 out of 2. But even if he doesn't, I think he's had a wonderful season. I'm very proud of what he's done.
Do you like coaching, or do you wish you were playing as well right now?
You know, honestly, I thought, oh, coaching sounds so much fun. It's so relaxing. This is like the worst job ever. I mean, you're watching these games and you're suffering and you're hoping that you're right. And thank God I don't have an engine, because like when you coach and you have an engine next to you and it just swings up and down, you just want to throw the computer away. And right now I'm confident in my positions, but it's really stressful to watch and not be able to act.
What was the most emotional moment so far during this match?
I think that a lot of emotions really in the game that Forrest Chen saved in the first round, because sometimes you just gotta give up on a game, right? Like you look at it, you're outrated by 1,000 points or something like that, and your position's completely lost. And somehow you start focusing on the other games, and you look back and you're like, whoa, what happened, right? And Forrest has been a hero. We definitely wouldn't be here, not only right now 6-6 against Armenia, but overall we wouldn't be here in the finals if Forrest Chen hadn't had such amazing performances.
Speaking of Forrest, can you give some analysis on his game so far?
I mean, it's a crucial game, right? It's kind of like both of the lower-rated players playing against each other, kind of like the sacrificial lambs. And it's looking really good for white. I mean, it looks like a terrible Benoni in some ways. Usually exchanging the dark squared bishops is not so great, but black has some problems, I think, finishing development. The knight on h5 is not great. I think that I would take white any day, and I think Forrest Chen has just been playing great chess, and I have high hopes for this one.
Thank you. Going back to you guys.
Well, and as how much? Yeah, no, that was great. And as we bring up the board, we had the knight highlighted, and G4 was played to expose that. I actually wonder if that's not a move that Alejandro would be super thrilled about, because the knight was so out of play. You're sort of forcing it back. But maybe there's some tactics if the knight comes to f6 with e5, and maybe Forrest thinks because of that, if the knight has to go to g7, it's even worse than it was before. But yeah, sacrificial lands, but not today, right? At least not for Forrest. Artak Manukyan as the manager would take an O donut, a 0 result of any kind if his team moves on. But he sure doesn't want that to happen, especially with a 6-6 tie. If he can get a win and unwind his development here in this Benoni, it would be huge. So All right, knight comes back to f6. Yeah, I'm not so sure that g4 is as exciting as it looked was the right idea. Note that e5 I don't think is really possible because the knight can take on g4 and fork the queen and the pawn, right? And there's no discovered checks because the queen falls. So I actually think that knight f6 and now it forces rook g1. Doesn't black have plenty of time to come back to e7 with the queen, stop e5, and I'm not so sure that g4 was actually the best move there. I think that maybe white should have focused on developing naturally and just leave the knight here.
Exactly, as you have mentioned, the knight is misplaced on h5,
right.
so give some time for your opponent to solve the issue of the
Yep.
knight. Don't force him solve it.
Right, and it's a good lesson, right? Sometimes you see a weak piece, but there's two types of weak pieces, everybody. There's the kind that you should be aggressively trying to trap, and there's the kind that they're weak because they're out of play, and often the right idea is to play in other areas of the board and expose its sort of absence, if you will. So, interesting to see. I actually don't think that was the best approach, and the fact that he's no longer has a big time lead, only about 40 seconds right now, we'll see. We'll see. So, yeah, this board 4 game is really one to focus on, as every game is when you have a 6-6 tie. So everybody who's with us, thank you for being here. I want to take stock here. Let us know whether you're an Armenia fan or a Bishops fan by posting their emote in the chat. Just one simple question. I'm curious. I'm actually curious whether we have more fans of the Bishops or the Eagles. So let's see that. And we're on board 4, but let's go back to the board 1 game between Andreassian and Akobian. This one not nearly as crazy as the ugly Benoni, but still a lot of life left.
What's going on this H2BA diagonal? I'm curious whether white can do anything about using this pin on e5.
I think DV Razor didn't get the memo that the Chess Bras didn't make the playoffs. There's the team. BJH, I love you, buddy.
Oh, look at those
rooting for
Danny.
Team Danny. But all right, but Chess King T says he's for the Bishop. So
all right, you're rooting for the Turtles who are not playing at the moment.
I also didn't get the memo that the Turtles are no longer playing for the championship. And
but tomorrow they will be back for the consolation match.
Yep, absolutely. Well. Rook takes d8, king takes d8. I think this one is going to be a peaceful result, or at least both board 1s, as you said. Kind of really playing it safe here. You see Andreassian there on camera, everybody. Just kind of a relaxed posed. Again, the Chess Bra fans, we love you. We're glad that you're excited about it. We have a Blizzard emote there from Chess Bay.
And the gnomes.
But I did give
a
specific request whether you're rooting for the Bishops or the Eagles. But appreciate that. And now we're going to move on to the board 2 battle. Okay, this seems to be the slowest moving game, even though technically the board 1 game started later, Anna, between Andreassian and Akobian. This one is they're really thinking a lot about what they want to happen out of the Spanish, so we're only just seeing d4. You got a big center for white. This bishop is going to come, I think, probably all the way back to f1, mainly because you want to meet a move like d5. A lot of times you want to meet that move with e5, right? Have more space, have a pawn chain that you usually use to crush the French defense. You know about that.
Sorry?
But right? You know about that. But you don't want to go here and allow d5 and force the trade so that now black would have the target of the isolated d-pawn for the rest of the game. So I think we'll see bishop f1. Still a lot of life left. The board 3 battle. Yaroslav Zarabuk, we heard high praise from Alejandro Ramirez about Yaro's year, and of course well-deserved. Yaro is among the MVPs of the league, at least for the Bishops. And he does seem
2 defeats, and then he made a comeback, so that's really something to pull yourself together and
yeah,
get
absolutely, yeah, and especially now where he's getting his chance to make it right. Board 3 versus board 3, right? Board 3 versus board 3 action. And I agree with Alejandro. He seems to be better in this game. He seems to have found his stride a little bit, right? G4 is played. I really didn't like H5 by Grigorian.
Grigorian on the camera right now, also very focused. Obviously, all the players.
He leans in. I feel like he's made his screen brighter than the other players.
It looks like that.
Right? Like he it was too dark for him.
He's glowing.
He's glowing a little bit. Maybe he's I don't know. Maybe he's just burning with fire for his team to win. And well, either way, he's obviously very focused. We see him there trying to figure out how he wants to deal with Zarabuk's G4 push. It's a tough decision, Anna, because if he takes on G4, 2 things are good. I think both taking with the pawn makes sense, but I wonder if you could even take with the knight in some of these positions and try to trade it off and eventually use the h-file for some sort of nastiness over here. So I wonder how he'll deal with it. He decides he's just going to ignore it and sit tight. Bishop a8 does two things, though. It opens up the rook, right, to have some threats, and maybe eventually has an outside idea of trying to get the queens off the board if the attack gets a little too scary. So I like this move, Bishop a8.
I see Grandmaster Jon Hammer in the chat. Of course, he's here with us.
Yeah,
he's a
here.
VIP guest, and he's also on Twitch.
That's right.
He has lost his spot on the couch. Oh,
He
poor
lost
you, Jon.
He lost his spot on the couch because if you move it, you lose it. Isn't that move your feet, lose your seat? I'm pretty sure that's the thing. The cool kids still do. All right, Artak Manukyan has wiggled his way out of it. I actually really feel that overall this ugly Benoni Forrest did not get as much as he would have liked. Okay, but wait a second. Maybe I'm... Okay, queen takes was the only move there because pawn takes was met by d6, but it may still be a serious problem there. So something happened on e5. I was looking at the position, honestly, first assuming it was black to move. That's what I meant. And then I realized, okay, that couldn't be it because the bishop was hanging. So the math led me to white's move and realized, actually, there's some tactical issues here. That e5 pawn is falling. And,
let's just go back because
okay,
I think
well,
that
it's still just equality when white wins back.
Exactly. So he sacrificed the pawn on e5 after.
Yep.
We
this
saw
position
it
right here.
This position, yeah. Then he pushed g5.
And then e5.
h5, e5. Winning back the pawn now after rook e1, and his d5 pawn is a strong passed pawn.
An interesting decision to castle short there. Interesting, and I think. On one hand, it puts the king a little bit out of harm's way because if you put it on c8 instead, for example, everyone, of course there is the possibility that the king is more open. But the other idea is that this king is actually closer to dealing with this pawn should things become a problem, right? And if you do the similar ideas of, I don't know, trying to trade on e8, you would also like to get this knight back into somewhere useful. So I'm not sure. I think that castle short was the best decision there. We'll find out.
I'm with you on this because the d5 pawn will need to be stopped, and the king from g8 is not helping in that.
It's still maybe black is okay.
Oh, look at that, Forrest Chen checking out his teammates. He's now more focused on the projector.
Feeling very relaxed here apparently, and maybe it's a psychological thing. Although in this setting he's not necessarily, his opponent is focused on the computer screen in front of him, so he's not showing off confidence to send any sort of message, but maybe he is a little bit. I think that one thing to consider is that after knight g7 and a d6, black can't just trade and get everybody off in time because both d7 and rook takes here, followed by d7, are pretty easily winning. So the fact that this d-pawn is so strong makes this a really tough decision. I think king f8 is going to need to be played instead of knight g7, but we're still going to see d6. The question is, can you get away with a move like this? Because now your king is close enough to deal with the pawn so that after takes, you would be back in enough time. And I think king f8 is... Okay, no, he doesn't do it. He takes e5. Interesting. Perhaps now king f8 or rook to d8 are coming, but the problem is rook e7 is coming. That was the other reason I liked king f8, right? It guarded the rook and guarded e7, so I think you kind of have to play king f8 anyway here.
I think he has to. I
agree
with
here he goes.
He's going for it. Preventing rook e7, and in general, you need your king to be active in endgame, so he's bringing the king closer. That's why we thought that castle queenside made more sense.
Yep. Well, we've maintained a calm tone till now, but all roughly 22,000 of you should be on the edge of your seat. I'm going to sit up here and get ready, because right now, all these games, all four games, I mean, every single one of these games could go either way right now, right? We have a 6-6 tie, so I feel like we're just sort of like lulling ourselves to sleep as if there's nothing on the line here, remembering that actually we're about to get a whole bunch of wild finishes all at once. And on that note, let's take it from board 4 to board 3, where the king side of Karen Grigorian has been blown open, but at a cost. White's king is feeling a little naked too here. This is somebody. I'm going to make a prediction right now. Somebody's going to blunder. This is going to get under time pressure, and somebody's just going to blunder in this game. We're going to have a decisive result here. I'd be shocked if there was anything else.
You must be right. With these two kings so exposed, someone will be winning this game, and I'm curious who will be that person.
Who do I like? Again, like I'm just like looking at this, trying to calculate. I love the idea that this bishop is just nasty on the diagonal, something that white lacks, right? That really long and scary. It's a ninja. It's a weird. I don't know. I think it's sneaky, and that's how tactics happen. You want to do things where you get the rooks involved, but at the same time, white is coming first here, right? Like white has moves, rook g3 and rook takes e6. We see it. I almost feel like I just heard Coach Mike Kummer. I feel like anytime I hear somebody going crazy, it's Mike over there, just so nervous for his bishops.
I know. Also, what's in favor of white's position is that his pieces are a lot more active. The heavy pieces, the queen on d4 is perfect.
But here comes takes, and I think king f7. That's what
and the queen is joining, queen g8 and queen g2.
But okay, but d6 is falling, so maybe it's just a bluff, or maybe it's not a bluff, and it's something like takes, queen d6, queen g8, and he has knight g4, blocking everything, and then launching the mating attack against the black king. That could be a critical line, actually. So I think that Grigorian is calculating something like this, and I wonder if it's the kind of line that he might have missed. Wow, this is going to be a super wild finish. The board 4 game is also down to a minute. Not much has changed otherwise. What about board 2's? Knights on f5. Emery Tate goes wild. The late and great.
Wow,
that's
so this
actually,
is a temporary piece sacrifice. If you take it...
Yeah, but I feel like that's a completely untakeable piece.
Yes,
that
because
is just
after g takes,
delicious.
It's either that the e6 bishop drops or f6 fork.
Yeah, fork emote, fork emote. Let's do it.
Let's use a fork emote. Can I
yeah,
use your Twitch?
You can do it.
I'm stealing Danny's Twitch right now.
Yeah, there you go.
There goes the fork emote.
All right. I've eventually my goal is to get my Twitch channel so that I can communicate only through emotes, and they know exactly what I'm saying. Right? I mean,
I love the idea. How many emotes do you need?
If there's enough emotes that have like subtle references, you can say complex sentences only through emote.
All right. I would love that.
All right, knight f5 is super strong. What happened? Okay, so the two board ones have they've sort of left it up to their teammates here. This was, I mean, I'm going to be honest, this was not a very exciting game, start to finish. This was a pretty straightforward, safe affair. Neither side really wanting to put the other to put their team at risk, and that's okay. So board ones didn't get a lot of love this round, and that's okay. More time for us to focus on some of these photo. Okay, king f7's been played. This is the one I really want to follow. Board 2 is going to have to wait for our focus on the one between board 3.
All right, so who is winning here?
And
queen
board
takes d6 was the move that we were calculating.
Yeah, I'm suggesting queen takes d6, and I'm saying that queen g8 check can be met by the move knight to g4. And I'm going to be honest, I said that without doing a lot of calculation. But I assume that if knight g4, rook e7...
Queen e7 was mate immediately.
Oh, queen e7's mate. I was just kidding.
So it's like anything
but
that's
rook
not
e7
a check,
was also winning, but yeah.
Yeah, sure. It's just that anything that's not a check is losing for black, but he doesn't have checks after knight g4, so he cannot go for this variation.
So what's he doing on queen takes d6 then?
I have no idea what's his plan.
I have no idea what he's doing. I think Yarrow is on his way to victory, to be honest.
Exactly. I feel the same way about this.
I think he's on his way to victory, and we have another peaceful result. I wonder what Forrest Chen is thinking here. I think he thinks he likes Yarrow's position. He feels that there's not a huge reason to try to push this position on. My honest criticism of the draw has got to go to the manager from Armenia here, because I don't know that his team can afford this right now, because it looks like Grigorian is going to go down swinging in this game. I mean, he's down 2 pawns,
and his king is
is wide open, and there's no tactics coming. So if Yarrow is going to win this game, it all comes down. Well, though, then again, maybe he doesn't deserve the criticism, because Sertahakian looks like he's better here against Dariusz Fierce. So are we going to get a tiebreaker?
I hope so.
Oh my!
I sure hope so.
I don't know.
What about our audience? Would you like a tiebreaker?
Everybody wants a tiebreaker. I want a tiebreaker. We want a tie. It's got to be. This will be exciting. Okay, so he takes on d6. Rook takes d6. At this point, I'd be surprised if Yarrow is not able to convert on this game, although that bishop is still kind of nasty. Better minor piece than anything white has if it can get out, if it can get away from where it is. But the problem, actually, on that note, rook takes b2 isn't so simple. Rook takes a6, and
wait a second, because you were mentioning that bishop. I was looking at rook g8 check and then rook g2. Do I have time for that? Your knight is stuck on h2.
Rook g8 check, king f1, and then bishop g2 or rook g2?
Rook g2.
Ooh. I didn't see this at all. Look at, okay, there's something crazy happening here on moves. Like, it's not so simple at all.
Because I don't have squares for my bishop. Yeah, I don't think
actually,
can go for
actually
this.
it doesn't work. Yeah, but bishop g2, as was just said by National Master Arun Sharma in the chat, rook g8, bishop g2 is possible, followed by taking h3. I think white is still in control here, still in the driver's seat. Taking on a6 is definitely an option. And okay, white's up 2 pawns, and I don't think there's enough tactics. But, all right, we're going to find out. He's going for this line with rook g8 check and bishop g2, so we're going to find out whether there's enough there. This game here is going to be super exciting down the stretch because they're both just they're Kevin Baconing the f5 square. They're playing chicken here. They're not going to trade. Neither side. They're going to stare at each other forever. But I feel like that favors white. At some point, he plays this move g3, Anna, with the idea of king g2 and rook h1. And he says, all right, you're going to ignore my knight. I'm going to go after h6, no problem. So that's the issue for Swears right now, is how to deal with king to g2 and rook h1.
We have just seen him in the camera, very focused, of course, but he's getting into trouble because of what you have mentioned, king to g2 and the rook coming to the h5. He has to find some kind of a counterplay, but how do you do that?
Yeah. The move rook to c7 is played to guard, overprotect e7. I think everyone said this queen is free, avoiding potentially dangerous tactics of that queen being overwhelmed. But I still like king to g2, unless there was some other subtle threat of this move. Is he eventually going to take here, right? Sometimes you leave a piece on pre for so long, you assume your opponent's never going to take it, and then booms. All right, well, we're going to find out. King g2 is rook h1 on the table, and I'm nervous. I'm excited. This is a 7-7 tie right now. This is bananas. This is, oh my gosh, we are literally a blunder away from somebody getting into the championship, and it will all be over. F4 played. Okay, Gregorian trying to hold. He's down 2 pawns, but he's put himself, I think, in a pretty good position, Anna, because king f5 is coming. He'll have a much better king. F4 is weak, and Yaro is down on time. So this has been one where he's been in control, but he has to be very careful with only a few seconds on the clock.
And this h2 knight is still stuck.
Absolutely. Okay, so this is crazy. We haven't seen the tension on f5 break yet, but black has added more to it. He's played c5 with the threat of capturing and hitting the rook at some point. Sorry, hitting the queen, and c4 actually. And look at that. Tirsahakian just plays rook h1. This is I feel like if this was a long time control game, white is winning here. I feel like the attack should be successful, but under time pressure, who knows? And obviously Swears is calculating like a madman here whether he can ignore h6, lines like c4, knight takes, you take, and I don't know, maybe actually he can do this, but the problem is the pawn is pinned to the rook on c7. So I'm not sure what he can do. Let's stay focused on the one that's under. Whoa!
What's happening?
Yaro is. He's lost the thread. This is. Wait, no. There's a couple of knights and a king that might get mated on f6. Like I said, somebody's going to blunder in this game, and it's just going to be over in the blink of an eye. So let's not go anywhere. Oh, bishop g4 check. It's mate.
Mate.
No, it's not. He's got 92. It's almost mate. It's almost mate. He has rook e3. Oh my gosh. He captures on g4 just in time. g3 comes, knight d4, blunders the piece, the rook d3 check. Rook d3 check was winning. Oh, knight f5, he doesn't have a win. But rook d3 was winning. Rook d3 was winning on the spot. This is the championship on the line in this game. This could be it right here. With no time on the clock, and the other game is also down to 12 seconds, by the way. A capture on f5 finally occurred. We might be getting a super exciting finish that ultimately brings us to the poetic justice of a tiebreaker.
Not a rook endgame from this
is going to be a draw. This is going to be a draw.
Oh
Yaro is shaking his head.
Very disappointed.
Okay, so if that game ends in a draw, which it is going to, this game will end in a draw. We're going to focus right here All of the marbles between the eagles and the bishops are coming down to whether Shahade can convert.
A cheer from the Armenia camp.
A cheer from the Armenia. That was a huge.
In that game.
That was a huge hold by Grigorian right there. Absolutely huge. Yaroslav shaking his head, but the truth is he almost got mated.
Also, yeah, and
he also was lost,
can we just
right?
look at it for a moment?
We'll look at it very quickly when he played the move knight to d4. We're not going away. We're not going away from this one. It's too exciting.
Yeah.
Okay, he takes. What in the world? Who's better and why? Now that everything's opened up, Black's pieces are coming to life. Who has an attack here?
5 seconds for
Queen
Darius.
E2, c4 comes. Perfect. The bishop should just back up to b1, and then now queen to c2 is a threat in a lot of positions. But the problem
but the
is
f3 knight was hanging
okay.
too.
But here comes the light squares. Here comes the he plays rook h5. I like the fact that queen c2 is a threat if you're white. Here he can play the other rook to h1 and build up on the attack. No, he doesn't. He plays knight d4.
Goodness me, this game could go
E6
three ways.
E6 is possible. I have no idea what the wins are.
All possible results.
There's a million good moves there for white. Feels like the thread's slipping though right now for white, because now that the queens are off, there had to have been a miss win there, but he wins the exchange. And with it, Armenia is in control of the match. They're tied 7.5, 7.5, but he's up the exchange. No time left for Swiers.
We hear the crowd
He's
cheering for the
They're
players.
starting to get louder. I think Armenia senses their chance for the championship. It's getting closer. Rook g4 check. No, he just transitions. This is going to be it. Shahade
completely winning.
The time is over, and the Eagles are moving on. They win.
Look at that.
Shahade takes down Darius Swiers.
Oh, that's a really happy team.
Oh, my gosh. It was absolutely crazy. A heart-breaking loss for the St. Louis Archbishops, and the defending champions have been eliminated by the team that didn't exist in 2017. They not only do exist, they're playing for all the marbles against the Chengdu Pandas, the #1 overall seed here, #1 seed here heading to the playoffs. I'm just blown away right now. Just so exciting.
Oh, look at
They can't believe it. Artak Manukyan, super proud of his guys, just absolutely going crazy. Oh my gosh, wowzers.
He did get that half a point in the last round.
He sure did. And the honest truth is that Akobian's draw versus Andreassian, and then maybe Forrest thinking twice about that draw. Obviously, he had a phenomenal day overall, but at this point, you can't help but second guess anything. The truth is, it doesn't matter. Both teams have had incredible seasons, and literally by just the narrowest of margins, the Eagles are moving on to the championship.
Wow. I still can't believe that this has gone this way. I thought that it would be a tiebreaker. It felt like it could be just a tie, and then we would see this excitement.
I was so excited for the tiebreaker. I wanted it. I mean, congratulations to the Eagles, but I was on the edge of my seat thinking that's what we were going to get, was the tiebreaker.
Yeah, I thought so too, and we saw those last two games.
We couldn't keep up with everything that was going on. It was.
Can we still bring it back, the position that we were discussing?
Obviously, we were talking about the position here where Yaroslav, several moves ago, we can go back to the fact that certainly Zerobuk must have been just much better in this endgame, especially earlier. At this point, he's up 3 pawns, but under time pressure, in a pressure-packed situation, super hard to be critical at all. And the bottom line is that he actually almost got himself mated, I think missing how dangerous bishop g4 was, because once bishop g4 is played, I don't have an engine on the board here, but there's no way black doesn't have something here. I mean, there's knight g3 here that could have been played, right? The knight is pinned.
But the bishop can be taken on g4.
Okay, yeah. So rook e3 was the best, gets the pawn. And now here you would think there should still be a way for white to maybe consolidate, but maybe not. I mean, there's too many pawns hanging.
But white is 3 pawns up. It's such a weird position. Black is very active, but black has only 1 pawn.
Yep. So g3 was played. Maybe what Yaro was supposed to do was just sit tight and play b4.
Perhaps.
What's the threat for black? There's nothing.
Nothing, because the g pawn is under control.
Yeah.
Knight f2 is just a check. perhaps he would have some kind of a draw with knight f2. But king d2 attacks the rook, so he doesn't have time for repeating moves.
Yeah, no, I think before, but it's hard when you've already been pushed to the brink, you've been pushed to the first rank, you almost get mated, you're just excited that you have the ability to make a threat. Honestly, I think Yaro played knight d4 because he was threatening knight f5 check, and his opponent immediately just stopped the threat, missing that rook d3 was just winning on the spot. All right, rook d3 check would have won the knight, and with it, the Eagles would have actually taken a 2-point victory of this match. So the truth is that kind of worked in Yaro's favor, but in the end, the fact that that wasn't played after knight d4, he moved the king. It didn't matter because even though this one ended in a draw, the Eagles moved on based on the win of the win of Samvel Tirsahakian. I mean, this was one of the better games of the day, though.
It was a very exciting game.
We have to say that it was our first e4, e5 affair, going through it quickly, everyone.
Are you suggesting that the best games are e4, e5?
I do like e4, e5. No, I'm suggesting that it was one of the better games we've seen from start to finish, and this is the game that I think ultimately will be the only one that mattered because it's the one that sent the Eagles to the championship to take on the Pandas. After g6, we saw just a lot of very typical maneuvering. The bishop came back to d3. Again, this was one of really the last moments we were looking at. We talked about how you don't want the d5 transition. That was right.
Oh,
but wow, look at that.
Team once again.
We look at them
Armenia Eagles,
standing up. They are moving on
finals.
to face the Pandas. I think they're getting ready to shake hands against. They shook hands already. I'm sorry, I missed it. That was my producer letting me know. But I'm looking for where did the attack really get underway? It was really right here where g4 was played, anchoring in the threat of knight f5. And even though it took one more move, once knight f5 happened, you could feel that things were heading Tirsahakian's way. And the truth is, this game got wild, but feels like White's attack was really strong here. The light squares eventually did pay huge dividends. Knight d4 I think was a little surprising. I think rook h1 might have been a little bit better, but okay, he gets the knight in. Even with the trade, it's a fork that happens.
Queen e4 was just a mistake. He blundered the knight e6.
Right, that's true. At this point, he had defended well enough to not have to be in a rush, right? A move like rook e7 was totally possible for Sviers, and there's lack of concrete threats. That's one of the reasons why I was thinking that here, if White plays rook h1, you know, all kinds of threats, including moves like knight g5 are on the table here. There's if this knight moves, there's immediate moves like rook f5, and even rook takes h6 is on the table here, right? Just sacrificing in exchange and blowing open black.
Yeah.
So Tirsahakian, I mean, really was in control of this game. Yes, it became a time scramble, but he deserved to win it, and ultimately he sends his Eagles into the championship round.
Eagles versus Pandas.
Eagles versus
Those
Pandas.
Two mascots, animals that we both love.
Right, and two animals that legitimately, I don't know who would win in a fight. I mean, I guess you'd think a panda if you could level it out on land, right? But you know, the
who
Eagles.
Said that you can fly over the
Eagles,
your panda.
right? I mean, you got so many options if you're an
know.
eagle. So you know what will happen? Brute force land animals or eagles who have flown in from the farthest distance of any of our teams here in the Final Four, all the way from Yerevan.
Armenia.
It was the farthest physical distance, even if China is playing from the most distant place on Earth as far as time zone goes. We have a matchup of two international powerhouses from just incredible chess cultures. Armenia, a little bit more of an older, more historical chess culture than China, but I'm pretty sure China will have a world champion at some point in the next couple decades. At least it seems that way.
It's very likely
seems
that
likely,
they will
so,
get a world champion. They are so improving in chess. It's huge.
Well, they
Chess
may have
has
a world
become-
champion tomorrow. I mean, the Pro Chess League are world
Actually,
champions,
yes.
right? Team
Actually,
world champions.
yes.
Team chess championships are a thing in chess. I think they're here to stay. This was super exciting.
I know. It's been
Yep.
And we have an interview with
of course
the
we
winner
must.
team
We have
and
to.
their manager.
Let's do
Artak
it.
Manukyan.
Alexandra, take it away.
I'm here with the Armenian Eagles. They just won the round. It was a very close match. How did you feel when you were watching the last game? Samvel was getting in time pressure.
Honestly, the most difficult one was with Karen because Samuel was pressing, and at least we have a draw. But to be honest, I mean, the match could go completely in a different direction because we lost a couple of moments. But first of all, I would like to thank to the crowd for funning, and this was also giving some insight to us. And thanks for all. It was really a very close match, and in one moment we were ready for blitz. And we were, in fact, know that it will be blitz when we were coming here. So we mostly prepared for 3+1. So anyway, looking forward to play with the strongest team, which is China Panda from China, Chengdu Pandas.
Was there any particular moment when you were thinking the match was going to go the other way?
If you remember, during the first round, I thought that the most important round is the fourth round, when the equal, abilities met. Of course, we can do much better. Let's say, Zaven had missed some opportunities. I maybe tomorrow will perform much better. But anyway, in any sense, the hero is a Samuel who really made the game. I mean, the match.
After the match, you guys ran and gave Samuel a huge hug. You guys have great team dynamics. How are you going to prepare tomorrow for the match?
When we're coming, I thought that if he will win, and I was betting on him because I know that he will be the hero. We will take and we'll make all of his wishes today to be realized.
Okay. Great. Thank you guys so much. Back to you guys.
What a promise.
What a promise.
They
all
do
of his
deserve
wishes
it.
come true. Apparently, Artak Manukyan is giving gifts to everyone. He's a genie for his team. And also a comment from one of our regular users in chat that he's reminding some to catch up on their Sopranos episodes, as he's got a little bit of a liking to Tony Soprano there, according to some of the chat. That was you take home one of the best comments of the day there. Tommy, but in all seriousness, it was just a super exciting day. It was a monumental moment anyway, because the St. Louis Archbishops, yes, the Chengdu Pandas have been the favorite and are a stronger team on paper, but in many ways, the Bishops, they were the defending champions, the team with the most experience in online match formats.
And the team with one of the coolest captains.
One of the coolest captains, one of the most just excited captains, and also one of the best performances we've seen in the league, that coming from Forrest Chen. And today he didn't disappoint. So it really felt that St. Louis had inched their way back into where they wanted to be. As Mike Kummer said, they were favored in 3 of the 4 boards heading into the last round, right? But they were just unable to deliver exactly what they need. But again, it sounds monumental. It was 1 point, right? It came down to 1 point.
Yeah,
and
I'm just looking at the scores, and as you have mentioned, Forrest Chen performing excellently. He was the hero of the day for the St. Louis Archbishops, but that means that 2 of his teammates did not perform as well as they could have according to their rating.
Right.
Minus score both for Dariusz Schwierz and for Jaroslav Jerebuk.
Yep.
And if you have 2 players getting less points,
right, it's
Forrest
close,
Chen cannot
and again,
compensate for it.
Right, and the rapid and blitz setting, it can come down to just any moment. The truth is, I think that we saw a pretty high level of play from all teams, especially under time pressure. Not a lot of huge just blunders in one move that took at least a winning position to a lost position, right? You definitely see people get outplayed and then blunders happen, but really, very, very close on paper, and it ended up being a super close match. The Eagles are moving on to face the Pandas. Maybe we can remind everybody what they should tune in for here tomorrow. We may have some other interviews here in a second, but we also want to remind you tomorrow we have the consolation match between the Archbishops and the Ljubljana Turtles.
Ljubljana Turtles, that's perfect.
I'm going to spam the turtle emote tomorrow because you and Robert will have the call in the morning. The Turtles versus the Bishops.
Yes,
and
for the 3rd place.
So we'll definitely make sure that happens. Looks like somebody was getting a little bit too excited there.
Oh, we will have another interview.
Not sure who jumped the gun, but let's move on to the interview. We actually have Mike Kummer, the manager of the year perhaps last year and right there this year as well. he's with Alexandra.
I'm here again with Mike Coomer, the manager of St. Louis. He's being a great sport, still telling us how he's feeling after these games. How are you feeling right now?
Well, I mean, we didn't get the job done, but I'm still really proud of my players. You know, they gave it their all. They fought hard. And Armenia, you know, they got it done.
You guys may not have gotten your second title this year, but I'm sure you're going to be back next year. Any plans?
Well, nothing's for certain, but yeah, we'll go into the off season and try to come back to the Final Four. This was a great event. I want to thank Twitch, the commissioner, Greg Shahade, and everybody back in St. Louis. Hopefully, we can have it in St. Louis next year.
What's the next chess event you're looking forward to? What's the next thing in St. Louis?
Oh, yeah. Obviously, the U.S. Chess Championship and the U.S. Women's Championship. Really looking forward to seeing Yaro, Var, and Fabiano competing for the championship.
And lastly, who are you going to be rooting for tomorrow?
The Archbishops. We get to play the Turtles.
Great. Thank you. Going back to you guys.
Oh, you just need to love this captain. I'm a fan
and you can tell he had nothing but nice things to say and the right things to say and classy guy. Obviously, really wanted his team to win. Worked super hard onboarding someone like Forrest Chen, and you can tell how much he wanted it. If you didn't read Mike Klein's pre-match article on the site talking about what went into the St. Louis season for them to get here, I would recommend everybody take a second and back up, get to know these teams and all of these players a little better, because it's just super exciting and super inspiring to see people work so hard to get to an event like this. And obviously you can tell he's choking back a little bit, right? I promised myself he's holding back, and that's okay, but still
I was about to cry just watching
I know.
the interview.
Congratulations to the Bishops. Obviously, congratulations to the Eagles. Yeah, he's right. He's rooting for the Bishops tomorrow. They will be taking on the Turtles bright and early, 10 a.m. There you have the bracket, as the Pandas and the Eagles will be facing off in the championship match, which will kick off similar to the time we started today, everybody, around 2:30 p.m. The Turtles and the Bishops will face off earlier. The third-place tiebreaker match will take place sharp at 10 a.m., and should be exciting either way. And we will see the Bishops and Turtles first. Then we will see the Eagles and the Pandas later on. Any final words, final thoughts on the action we had today?
Oh, this has been so exciting. We didn't know what was going on, who will qualify for the championship match. Both teams would have deserved it. It's a heartbreak for the St. Louis Archbishops. Shout out and congratulations to the
I'm super excited for Armenia. I think secretly, like you, I kind of thought just something about it. They seem to have some magic. You just thought
I had this feeling.
I had the same thing.
I didn't mean that I was rooting for them. Of course, I'm rooting for both teams.
I think in some ways I was rooting for St. Louis, if I'm totally honest. Now I can say that because I wanted the defending champs against the strongest team. But I mean, the drama's there either way. I think that that's going to be super exciting. We have teams traveling from so far and with a ton on the line. Two brand new teams, both had to qualify their way in. Tomorrow they're playing for the biggest prize in team sports, in chess team sports, and we'll see everybody tomorrow.
That's $20,000 is the first prize, $10,000 for the second. But as we have mentioned, it's more about the title. It's more about being able to say that they are the best team in the world.
Yep.
In online sports, first ever chess event, esports chess event. It has been a pleasure commentating with you, Danny.
You too. And we'll see everybody tomorrow. Make sure you're here at 10 a.m.